Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. You might be already aware, Unacademy, this is India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you're likely to get once you enroll yourself in Unacademy? Ladies and gentlemen, if that's going to be your question, yes, you got daily live classes, you can chat with your educator, and you can engage in all round discussions, ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the session's going on. You might be aware we've got a structured courses here which is completely based on UPSC civil service examination pattern and syllabus as well, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework. You are on track, you save your time and energy. Not only that, one particular point we are keep on emphasizing, you might be aware, it's not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters. And it's not what you deliver, rather how do you deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, for that we have got a mechanism. One second. For that we have got a mechanism, of course, to evaluate your preparation with our regular mock tests and quiz programs. And you get detailed analysis of the report based on your performance. You come to know where you are strong, where you are weak, and also the time you have consumed in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, you got unlimited access, more than 1 million videos waiting for you, right? It's not like conventional offline program where you get that only one particular that a faculty member for a particular that segment. You got variety of people addressing over a single segment. You got choices, ladies and gentlemen. And whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone or laptop, desktop, irrespective of your electronic device, ladies and gentlemen, you can learn from anywhere, anytime. Yes, let me take you right. And what you have to do, please download an Academy learning app immediately, whether it is Android or iOS. Ladies and gentlemen, once you download all those, that the benefits what we discussed now, you are ready to access. Yes. Who is thus interacting with you? Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath from Chennai. With unique experience of got exposed to the fields of engineering, management, and legal education. With 25 years of experience in the field of coaching, especially say shaping the careers of civil service aspirants. With my team, I could witness the humble results. Of course, 250 plus results as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS. All my kids are working in different parts of India, and some of them in abroad as well, part of Union External Affairs Minister, that ministry you might be aware. And parallelly, I come to know, of course, that you can also parallelly ask me another question. Yes, what's your vision, sir? I understand. To be part of the solution by simplifying the complexity. And for that particular purpose, that I actually, as a team, that we started, that enabling youths of India to begin with, later to, embrace the global community. Yes, to provide career solution, especially. That fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with Unacademy's vision. We are working together. We are working together to build communities. We act as a bridge. We play the role of connector so that you get your, the career. It's not mere job. So that you become officer or leader in your own capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also reach me through Telegram channel, say Unacademy_Sampath. Or that you can watch a lot of my videos already available part of YouTube channel of Unacademy, especially when it comes to that optional subject. You might be aware the very sociology, which is popular and highly scoring subject. Even I'm qualified enough because I could score fantastic marks in that. Earlier I was called Sociology Sampath. Now I am Success Sampath. That all your confirmation. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, and not only that, that a lot of my kids, become officers because of that fantastic score in sociology. You can also join that club. Scoring 450 plus out of 500 is simple process in sociology. You might be aware. And you can watch a lot of videos on the part of Unacademy YouTube channel. You can use my referral ID, say Success Sampath or Sampath Irvengidam. Not only that, even the essay paper, that the 250 marks, based on 25 years of, that the questions I've devised into 8 domains, that if you're strong over 2 to 3 domains, you are capable of scoring more than 250 plus out of 300 marks. Let me say that way. The more than 200 plus out of 250, because you're going to write only 2 essays. You might be aware. That's essay. And we've got, strategy for that. You please watch those videos also. And not only that, you might be aware the ethics and integrity. It's part of, the GS. That's what, even today's, interaction is going to be. The ethics and integrity meant for 250 marks. It's very simple. 120 plus 130 marks. 120 marks meant for your theories. 130 marks meant for your case studies. Ladies and gentlemen, and also, that international relations. Not only that, when you download, the Unacademy, the app, you can watch a lot of videos there already available. If you're already subscriber, you can already access. Otherwise, you can participate the live shows, especially. Ladies and gentlemen, where, that last 5 years question papers we have discussed, the MCQs. Many questions came out of that, that the people are keep on giving us feedback. Thank you so much, that aspirants for that particular thing. That prompts us. That encouraged us, incentivized us, because of that. Now I started discussing, that more questions, focused over, mains also, the GS mains, cutting across variety of segments. You might be aware. Ladies and gentlemen, please watch those videos to benefit more. Please use my ID, say, of course, Success Sampath or Sampath Iruvengidam to get more, that information. Of course, that will take you to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right time. It's not only me. We more than 100 plus top educators of India with subject matter expertise, with field exposure, that of course, there'll be a lot of guys, of course, minimum, 15 years experience. In my case, of course, it is 25 years, you might be aware. So 22, the 25 years of, the refined faculty members, part of Unacademy, waiting there in the name of educators to support you. Please make use of the, that opportunity available there. Of course, it's not only, that particular thing. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we've got more than 15,000 courses, subject-specific module, duration-specific module. Choose what suits you. Yes? Excuse me. Getting cold. Thank you. You can also refresh yourself parallel. Ladies and gentlemen, choose what suits you. Hope you would have got it. Depending upon your time availability, your budget, you can choose the programs here. You got such a flexibility part of Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we have devised 2 major programs. One is Plus program, another one is Iconic. Yes, why? Great things will take time. It is an empire building process. Once you become officer, say IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, you are going to be part of, steel pillars of Indian administration for the next 25 to 30 years of wonderful career. You might be aware. You're going to change the fate of so many people with simple your signature. It's possible. Don't say the limitations of politicians. If you want to do, you will do. If you want to say, you can say no. When you want to say no, you have to say no. And that is what part of this subject. Ethics and integrity, you attend that, you will come to know. Yes, in that scenario, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you have to devote minimum. Because 1 year for the pattern of examination, 1 year for your preparation. Great things will take time. Not only that, there is no leadership without passions. There is no leadership without passion. There is no leadership without consistency or focus. In spite of the difficulties, we have to strive. Of course, everybody is struggling in our day-to-day life. You might be aware. That struggle is good. That's fantastic. No pain, no gain. I'm not talking about mere hard work. I'm talking about smart work. There comes our role as a team. That Unacademy, we are there to connect you with your success story. That's simply, that hardly, that an year away or 2 years away. Of course, that for that we have devised a program from 1 month to 36 months to suit your, that nature and time availability, budget, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, that please use my referral code, that says success. Please join, that Prelims cum mains integrated program, that too Iconic, if not at least plus. When we talk about plus, you got variety of pluses. What are all those? Live classes, test series, unlimited practice sessions, structured schedule mechanisms. If you use my referral code, that says success, if you avail 10% discount, almost see the difference 9,000. From 90,000 to it becomes, that 81,000 only if you go for 3 years program. Because, work going, college going aspirants, we understand. You have to plan accordingly. It is not forcing yourself, that to fit in 6 months. Ultimately, that it's not, the learning is fun. It is not stressing you. It should be a hobby. On the way, it's a journey. Please enjoy your journey. Becoming an officer, enjoying, success is momentary. What is your journey? Do you enjoy your journey? That's very important. For that, you have to understand the process. For that, you should know the technology or methodology. There comes our role to connect you with those, that important elements we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, more than this, we strongly recommend, Iconic program. What is that? You will be allotted in a personal coach, a mentor. This is more than plus programs and associated advantages. That that the coach, personal coach will understand your nature and to suggest study planner accordingly. And you will be trained on everyday basis in terms of answer writing exercises. And anyway, of course, you might be aware the price hike is on the card. Please, rush yourself, benefit more. That it is that way. Here too, you've got, 12 months program, 24 months program, 36 months program. Of course, it is virtual learning. Given COVID situation, a new normal we witness today. It's not blaming the game. It's because of COVID. It's because of institutions. Plus, no, nothing doing. Everything, click away distance. Have you taken effort? Have you utilized the opportunity? Yes. Of course, that we are that. We, Unacademy, India's #1 online education platform, the best, the platform. You might be aware. It is that way, that we are there to support, that make use of the opportunity available. Yes, it's almost like individual attention the moment I talk about Iconic program. Here too, you please use my referral code, to avail, that of course 10% discount. See, almost, that you enjoy 15,000 differences. You benefit because of the discount. You understand? Yes. For all popular optional subjects, including, that the sociology, what I mentioned, you got, that support here on the part of Unacademy platform. Ladies and gentlemen, here you can use my referral code, say success, to avail, 10% discount. Of course, you get around 5K if you go for, if you choose 36 months program in optional subject. Yes, as I told you, learning is fun. Excuse me. Let me do justice to this panel, please. Yes, learning is fun. That yearn while you learn. What are the things you learn, that you parallelly participate in this, Unacademy Combat, which is going on. Please enroll yourself, that to benefit more. Lot of attractive prices, that on the cards, you please participate, get incentivized, feel encouraged. That pushes you to the next level. Of course, that it's all India competition, that you might be aware. You please enroll yourself and participate and perform and achieve. It is that way. It's a prelude before achieving this, IAS or IPS, a pivotal position on your path. Ladies and gentlemen, that only hardly 6 months we have, before our forthcoming, prelims, say, that 2021. That too on, 27th, the June. February month you will be getting notification, and within March you have to apply, and you got hardly 6 months. Please apply immediately. Enroll yourself to benefit more, because that if you want, that get score in mains examination, you should have been qualified at the prelims first. Then only you will be allowed to enter there. You might be aware. We are talking about it that way. So, that we have got variety of, the team of experts on the part of, Unacademy. We top educators waiting there to support you, whether it is bilingual or exclusive Hindi or exclusive English medium. You might be aware the basic difference between offline academy and online academy. You got full syllabus coverage. That too with variety of, educators waiting there over a particular segment of a subject. You might be aware. You please download app, go through all those, free videos, that you will come to know the benefits, that waiting there for you. Yes, and also, that the prelims combines, that of course test series I said, but here the 6 months program, prelims test series with analysis, you can download materials, the PDF, everything. And we are very happy to answer all your queries, doubt clearing sessions, and we also take care of your interview, the oral interview part of mains. You understand already it started, that join immediately to benefit, that don't miss the bus, don't miss the opportunity. Whether you plan for 2021, 2022, 2023, bilingual or exclusive Hindi, exclusive English medium. There is a saying, that, of course I understand, don't get, that misled by, that others' opinion. That we've got English-based programs where people like me with 25 years of experience there on the part of Unacademy to support you. Don't worry. We are there to help you. Yes. And especially South Indians, that you got English program. I understand your difficulty. Yes. I said iconic program. Yes, price hike is on the card. You know that you will be allotted a personal coach, and not only that, the mains, the test series, and you will be trained, and you will get customized study planner because of that. And also you can also attend booster sessions whenever that you want more clarity. And also that you can also be part of that high intensity workshops we are talking about, and practice answer writing that everyday basis, and this accelerates your preparation with daily content we are talking about. And if you have already joined in different courses part of Unacademy, you can also upgrade yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. Yes, now it is the right time for me to take you to the world of the very purpose and direction. Ladies and gentlemen, we already started discussing, that part of this subject, say ethics and integrity, you might be aware, which is, the part of UPSC Civil Service Examination mains, where you got 1,000 marks for general studies. Has 4 papers, paper 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth paper is no doubt, of course, your ethics and integrity, meant for 250 marks. Where, that you might be aware, we are talking about, the 120 marks, for your theories, and of course 130 marks meant for your the case studies we are talking about. Today we are going to discuss couple of case studies also. The 120 marks, the theories, when I say the contributions from different philosophers, the greatest thinkers in different parts of the world, and several religions, you might be aware, all religions leading to the same destination, all roads leading to Rome. There's a saying in Christianity. Okay, several, even that the Hinduism also understands that that the world as a one family, Sanatana Dharma, of course the Vasudeva Kudumbakam. That the religious tolerance or unity in diversity is a core principle of Hinduism we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way, we understand all different paths ultimately leading to the same destination. But the truth is same, but the manifestations are different. The God is same, but the nomenclatures are different. Almighty, whether you call God, whether you call enlightenment, say knowledge, whether you call truth, whether you call love, whether you call nature, that's ultimate. That's ultimate. We are part of that particular ultimate, ladies and gentlemen. So that the very subject matter, say ethics and integrity, that will make you, that will take you to the next level. Because it's not saying that the past is waste. No, that it is changed with continuity. The 21st century demands that a new tool to understand, that to provide solution to the 21st century world. It's not living with the tools of 19th century or 18th century. Yes, when you want to move to the next level, that demands creativity, innovation on your part. Ladies and gentlemen, of course we understand the 21st century. Of course, this ethics and integrity is a subject matter of knowledge based society. அறிவார்ந்த சமுதாயத்தை உருவாக்குவதே எங்கள் நோக்கம். Our political leader speaking this way. You might be aware, I spoke in Tamil. The knowledge-based society where you don't need monitoring mechanism, you don't need, that otherwise, surveillance there. Because you are very matured enough. You are culturally conditioned. You internalize the value system on the part of the society to the core. And also, that the various agents of socialization, the institutions on the part of the society also institutionalized you, that to the core. It worked in such a way that you've got, the byproduct, a character in you. There is a SIM card called culture in you. There is a judge in you. There is a conscience in you that guides you, because you never ignore the inner voice. You always listen to the whispering mind there. It may be totally different from reality. Of course, it is right time. Let me recall, that Swami Vivekananda, when there is a, conflict between heart and brain, of course, that you listen to the heart. The brain, even today I'm going to connect with Immanuel Kant. The places which you cannot, travel through brain, you can travel through your heart, the intuition. All is well. What it says here, inga enna solludhu. The dialogue, na Jersey nu solluda. That South Indians might be aware, that some movies, dialogues, famous dialogues. What it says. Do you listen to your intuition? Of course, that's connected with the soul. The soul linked with the very purpose for which you came here in this world. Maybe that's one way of explanation. There are so many ways of explaining that particular spirit, to prove that you are part of the bigger things. You are part of the, that universe. You are part of the greatest purpose in the world. It is unfortunately we do, so many things and complicate the life, that ultimately, that start asking the question, who am I? Why I came to this world? But for all your questions, you will get answered through this subject. Let me assure you. Yes, this I said, that the subject of, that knowledge-based society, Arivarnda Samudayam. And what about society we had in the past? Of course, no doubt, hunting and food gathering society, traditional agrarian society we have seen, and also industrial society. Now, the post-industrial society, which is otherwise called knowledge-based society. Here you see the predominance of service sector. Here you see the manufacturing sector and its, that predominance. In the traditional agrarian society, no doubt the primary sector of Indian economy, of course, you call agriculture. And hunting and food gathering society, here almost, that the primordial living, nomadic life, everything you put together. Hunting and food gathering, the absence of private property consciousness here, where everything is for everyone. No private property concept I'm talking about. It is not domestication of plant or animals there. The day when you started domesticating plants and animals, even land, there came the very birth of, settled agriculture. And here in the hunting and food gathering society, how the people were regulated, that may be your question, I understand. By magic, black magic, they are afraid of magical force. The mystic elements, you might be aware. So, that when, that there came the traditional agrarian society, people were afraid of, that the fearful of nature. Naturism, animism, Bongaism, you hear all those. Not only that, and also polytheism. The belief system, faith system came. People were afraid of, that the Indra, Varuna, Aditi, Purandara, Usha, Agni, then Lord Shiva, Vishnu, you talk. Lord Ganesha, Muruga, you talk a variety of gods. Maybe in Hinduism, of course, Allah, Jesus, it is that way you call. The variety of religions in the world, the faith, the system we are talking about, afraid of, that. So ultimately religion, that governed them. So here magic regulated the behavior of society. In the traditional agrarian society, religion regulated the behavior of the society, acted as a social control, so that, that enforced social order. Religion brought people together, that was functional those days. Unfortunately, today we are talking about religious fundamentalism, forced religious conversion, majoritarianism. That's wrong. They are called dysfunctional to the very society. They are not bringing social order. They are, they're destroying the social order. You might be aware. And the world of religion, you enter into religious competition. That's why I want you to go beyond religion. Enter into the world of spirit. Understand the spirit. There is spirit in everyone. You are part of the greatest spirit. You came with a purpose, a duty. Jivatma has got linked with Paramatma, Brahman. Whatever may be the religion. Once the purpose is over, you go back. Otherwise, till the purpose is over, you get rebirth. These are all different kinds of belief system, you might be aware. It is that way, that you enter into the world of spirit ultimately. There you won't be, the competing with other religions. Rather, you try to respect other religions. Because after all, there are different paths to the same destination we are talking about. It is not talking about my religion is best, your religion is, best. Over. Fools will do. For a great man, the religion is a tool for connecting people. For a small man, the religion is a tool for dividing people. This is according to Dr. Kalam. You might be aware. So that's what I'm saying. But that these are all the issues. Why? In the context of ethics, you will come to know. So religion somewhat regulated the people. Of course, we talk about ill effects of religion. Dysfunctional aspects of religion are unintended consequences on the part of the institution called religion. Once upon a time, that resulted in congregation, brought people together, established peace in the society. That is for the sake of fear of nature or God. And what happened, that when we moved to industrial society, there came a new kind of mechanism where we call, of course, that the role of science. Even the industrial society itself got established because of the, that inventions and discoveries, happen in the world. You might be aware. The industrial revolution, you talk about in Europe, it's because of the, the concomitant industrial revolution, the very, that intellectual revolution. The maximization of productivity. Yes, we are talking about it is the associated changes. So when you talk about science, you have to acknowledge the fact there will be cause and effect relationship. That talks about logical connectivity. That talks about reasoning or rationalization. Otherwise, that talks about, empiricism. Show me proof attitude. You don't just believe, you don't just carry forward in the name of custom or tradition, belief, faith, whatever may be. You want to see everything. Show me proof attitude. The verifiability. That's what in the world of natural science you might be aware. Observation, experimentation, verification, hypothesis. What you did in your laboratory. So put together, ultimately, that you arrive at a conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, when you add chemical A with chemical B, you get chemical C. Yay! Give him Nobel Prize for chemistry. Give him Nobel Prize for medicine. Hypothesis, you arrive at. Even millions and millions of times, that you repeat under the given situation, given parameters, you get the same result. But at the same time, we acknowledge the fact for every thesis, there is an antithesis, then synthesis. Because change is permanent. Yes, we are talking that way, of course, we are talking about. So, the very birth of science, outcome, the logic, outcome, you say law. So, the law of the nation. But you have to understand the very law, it's not, one day fine morning straight away came from, that somewhere. You have to understand it is evolution. The social values became social norms. Social norms in the long run became, that law. Because social values are, you show your preference or desire. So general guidelines to an action, but when you make it very specific, it becomes norms. That you may follow, that you should follow, but law you must follow. You ought to do. Because you talk about the social norm, specific, mandatory, but this talks about must. Otherwise, you will be penalized. So there came, a different kind of, a tool called law to govern, that regulate the behavior of the society called industrial society. But we are living in the world. It's not a policy paralysis. You got innumerable, a myriad laws cutting across various spheres. Lack of coordination, lack of implementation, people on the part of implementation. It's not a policy paralysis, but rather paralysis of implementation. Why? A guy who is on the part of, that implementation, not living to the core, not understanding the responsibility. With more power comes more responsibility, we say. The irresponsibility on the part of those guys, because the lack of value system. Not living up to the expectations of the people. Not delivering the goods as expected. There is a gap, not small gap, much gap. That's what people say, system gone wrong. The majority of the people, the overall erosion of the value system you call. Maybe the science without humanity, as Mahatma Gandhi ji said, one of the 7 sins. People lost the purpose, lost the core, but rather they focus on peripheral things. Otherwise, they do postmortem, reactionary, not proactive, not respecting the process. To respect the process, there will be product. What is the process? That talks about, that your blueprint of the society called culture. That goes with your brought up socialization. That goes with your internalization of value system. Otherwise, it's not saying that there are no takers. When you got all those institutions, evolved institutions to cater the needs of variety of needs of the society, social institutions, whether it is marriage, family, education institution, economic institution, political institution. Are you learning out of it, the value system? If you have done everything, there will be character in you. There will be attitude in you. That decides your altitude. That you will be a strong personality, I'm talking about, irrespective of the deviations, that for over ephemeral activity. You come back, there will be speedy recovery. We are a human being, I understand. You can't be always like this. Even my sister says, I understand. Of course, even the deviations can be set right immediately. Why? Well, only when you are strong personality, alumni. Otherwise, that with strong character in you, when the character goes, everything goes. So all these things, part of this subject matter I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, because, the very law talks about limitations. In the world of law, you got limitations. Sometimes it is rigid. As said by, Max Weber, the world of bureaucracy, people become iron cage trapped individuals, unable to move this side. That's according to that GO wrong, according to this ministry proposal wrong, according to this Supreme Court judgment wrong, according to this amendment, according to that minister. There is always someone to be blamed for you. You talk about limitations because of the law. Then what is the solution? You are unstoppable, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody can stop you, because when you want to provide, the solution to the society, when you want to be part of the solution, when your purpose is great, the whole universe will conspire in such a way so as to, so that you realize your dream, goal, you be part of the solution. But it is selfless, that the solution. It's not based on your selfish motive, for the welfare of everyone we are talking about. So there comes ultimately a tool to rescue whenever you see limitation because of the law, because where we say ethics is more than law, there comes ultimately the ethics, that ethics in the world of the knowledge based industrial society, where that ultimately you are guided by your intuition, your conscience, your judge, your inner voice. You're not stopped by law. That talks about your compassion, your sensitivity, your empathy, sympathy, your integrity, your honesty, your responsibility, your accountability. There is no measuring yard, but there is a judge in you. That you are living in the world today, that the judges speaking, having come out of the Supreme Court after 15 years, that sorry, I gave wrong judgment. Hey, by the time the guy is no more, what is the answer for the victims there? For your faulty judgment. Circumstantial evidences proved in such a way that I was forced to deliver the judgment. My conscience says that's wrong. You feel guilty now. What is the use? In the world of law, only on violating law, you will be declared criminal. Ultimately, you will be penalized. After that, you feel guilty, because people will say that guy, he went to jail. That guy, committed this criminal offense. But in the world of ethics, even thinking of violating, that thinking of doing unethicality, immoral things, wrong things, you feel, the guilty. Why I thought this way? Oh my God, please correct me. Ultimately, you go for prayer. Ultimately, you correct yourself. You get the help of Periyar Tunai Kodal. Ultimately, you talk with your mentors, correct yourself, get clarification. There comes willingness on your part to be ethical. That force, that's outcome of your conscience, inner voice, the heart I'm talking about. There you get courage, the guts, because you stand for the principles, the value system, the standards I'm talking about. So that's all about ethics. Ethics is all about, it's more than law, but it's not compromising law. But when you've got limitations or the rigidity because of the law, so the world of ethics ultimately taking you to flexible, pragmatic, to be part of the solution, where you are guided by your inner voice. Otherwise, if you don't listen to that, there comes crisis of conscience. You feel guilty, you can't be happy, as happened in the case of judge. You understand, this subject is all about that, ladies and gentlemen. So ethics, that welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, ladies and gentlemen. What is this? This is subject matter of knowledge-based society. You don't need monitoring mechanism. There is a judge in you. Tannenje tannai chudum. You don't need someone else to punish you. You will feel, the guilty that never allows you to stay in peace. The moment you commit unethicality. That's what even Plato reinforcing the statement. A guy who commits, that unethicality, he gets more wretched, than the victims ultimately we are talking about. It is that way. So, that ethics is as a subject. Whenever you see, situational constraints, the conflicts or conflict of interest on the part of the governance or ethical dilemmas, there comes ultimately, that ethics to rescue, to guide you, because it's, that in the name of, principles, the standards, the value system. And that, different kind of value system in different sphere, you might be aware. One shoe cannot fit everyone. So whether it is, basic human values, where we talk about, the truth, TRLPJ, I gave you the code. What is that TRLPJ? Truth, responsibility, love, peace, justice, the basic human values. As a human being, the fundamental basic values you are supposed to have. So everything is evolution out of this. Say integrity, truth in the long run becomes honesty. Honesty in the long run, integrity. The moment you take responsibility, ultimately you'll be strictly, there comes, unwavering commitments towards what you do. Man of commitment, women of commitment. It's with more power comes more responsibility. Of course, love. The moment you love everybody, love leads to peace. You don't, otherwise you start accepting people as they are. You don't expect, how people should be. Rather, you land up in disappointments. I'm talking about. The moment you love, you accept as they are. You don't expect. It's a drama. It's a waste of time. It is not tolerating. It is not accommodating. Even that's not free from stress. Why tolerance? Accept. Of course, it may be in the long run, it may happen, acceptance, because, people are suspicious. As long as they are suspicious, they won't accept you. To some extent, they may accommodate you, tolerate you. In the long run, it happens ultimately. So as long as the acceptance is there, there will be peace. That leads to prosperity. That leads to happiness of everybody. Of course, that the love leads to that a peace we are talking about. The peace, the world is running after. As an individual, you go after that. Every organization is running after order. In spite of the that innovation, R&D, the change that takes them to the next level, but they want to stay composed, organized, order, stability, equilibrium. You might be aware, Kurambiya Kuttayil Muham Theriyadu. When when the pond is perplexed, how come you can see your image? When you are confused, when you are perplexed, you can't arrive at good decision. That is the thing, that whenever you are emotional, don't take, the decision we say. Otherwise, you should, if you have, emotional intelligence, that's fantastic. People say emotional fitness. What is the parameter for fitness? What is fitness for you? That unfit, that a standard for someone else. I'm talking about. Who is going to devise that parameter? Even emotional intelligence itself, varying from sphere to sphere. You might be aware how to handle emotions of yours so that you can handle the emotions of others by staying composed. And finally, what happened, right? That at the end of the day, truth alone triumphs. You say the same way, the fairness, the justice, what you do. In that sense, you move from mere equality to equity. You understand, where you practice empathy, sympathy. You understand unique problems on the part of everybody. It is this way. This is ethics in personal relation, basic human values. The same way ethics in social relation, where we are talking about Nolan Committee recommendations. Of course, SI, OA, OH. Yeah, we spoke already. Nolan Committee recommendations of UK. Of course, they are celebrating Silver Jubilee. What is that? That selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, leadership. This is, that any public servant in the public relation, the social relation. That's recommended by, Lord Nolan of UK. We're talking about. And also ethics in public administration, where we got, but in the world of case studies, I'm going to discuss, I think that's enough. The same way you got other values on the part of ethics in public administration, the environmental ethics, the ethics in international relations, the concepts like attitude, aptitude, emotion. This is what emotional intelligence, this is what your syllabus. Ladies and gentlemen, it is otherwise called written interview, because having gone to, that interview, the oral interview, when they, pose questions, you answer. Maybe psychometric test, or even you reveal your personality there. The name of the stand or decision you are arrived at while delivering over a particular issue. But instead of speaking there, you're writing here. That's why it's called, that written interview, this ethics, the 250 marks. Where 120 marks meant for your theories, 130 marks meant for case studies. It is also called anticipatory socialization. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking this way. Why? Because, you might be aware, that before you reach the level of, home secretary, the chief secretary of a particular state, as a district collector, district magistrate, or CEO of, maybe district administration, Zilla Parishad you call, local body. They keep you in that position and asking you, if you were in that guy's shoes, you were that secretary, what would have been the ethical solution? Ultimately expecting you to go for introspection, to analyze merits and demerits involved, and also to answer questions. Yes? This is called anticipatory socialization. Before reaching that position, you socialize yourself now. Before you become a district collector, you come to know the responsibilities, the actions. Yes. That's, that it's a preparatory stage. What happens? That ensures your entry, the smooth entry, so that you become IAS or IPS officer by scoring more. You become officer number 1, number 2. You never find conflicting environment. You are ready to serve immediately there. It's not again entering into learning domain because you already learned something. Of course, you got part and parcel of that, that your service, that in service training, you might be aware, you go to Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, that the bar of darshan, you meet variety of people, and periodical training will be given, you will be updated. That's different scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you. And then ultimately what happened, this is what we are going to discuss. It is in continuation of variety of decisions, the previous videos. It's already available part of, YouTube, Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, watch them. And also, my humble attempt, that today it's going to be, enriching, who are all the people enrich the subject matter of, the very ethics and integrity, the contributions, the philosophers and thinkers from different parts of the world. In that line, that in previous sessions, we took into account Western moral thinkers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, where we say knowledge is virtue. Because that as long as you are aware, that you will be ethical person. Maybe unethicality is lack of awareness. But there comes, from Socrates and Plato, Aristotle, to make a difference, you might be aware, he's very pragmatic. Knowing is not doing. You have to apply. So these are all the things we discuss. And next level, I know that we took you to the world of course, the 18th century, 19th century British English utilitarians, that you might be aware. Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, the maximum happiness for maximum people. Even democracy works that way. We discuss from gross utilitarianism to refined utilitarianism, from quantitative utilitarianism to qualitative utilitarianism. We spoke. Of course, that was based on, you might be aware, that the teleological approach, the outcome. But today I'm going to discuss, especially the Immanuel Kant, he practices deontological approach. Deon means duty. I'm going to discuss. I'm going to take you today to two that established people. You might be aware. One, that the German philosopher. Another one, American philosopher. The Immanuel Kant, German philosopher, and John Baudelaire Rawls, American philosopher. You know what? The theory of justice in that the very contribution John Baudelaire Rawls simply says. I'm talking about in the world of ethics. What you do? You move from equality to equity. That's all, na? That I'm simply saying in one line, but that's explained by John Baudelaire Rawls through his book, The Theory of Justice. If you want to establish a just society, what are all the, the irreducible basic principles people should come and agree? He took into account hypothetical subjects. That's what I'm going to discuss. And the people are knowing nothing about their, background, and they are given basic information. But they came and agreed over two principles called one equality principle, another one is equity principle. Equality, we are all equal. Basic civil rights, equity, the protective discrimination you are talking about. So ethics is all about moving from equality to equity. The essence of ethics you see in his contribution. That's none other than, it's otherwise called Rawlsianism. John Baudelaire Rawls, because of his, theory of justice, the book that, I'm simplifying. After that, we are going to elaborate. That Immanuel Kant, you might be aware. The transcendental idealism, he says. Don't get constrained by mind. It's not a, the plain slate that you feed information, you are constrained by that. There are things, which you don't know, beyond the mind. Something beyond the mind, transcendental, go beyond mind. There are ideas, maybe, that in that sense, it becomes mystic. It takes asylum in spiritual world. Even, that the mathematician Ramanujam, he said, that ultimately all equations are nothing for me, are meaningless for me. But that the meaning things are, that the greatest voice I hear from ultimate God. Otherwise, he attributed, all of his mathematical, the genius because of Namagiri Petai Amman, something, that in his, that dream while he was sleeping, that the message came. He started working out. Even the Nostradamus prediction, even today, whether you agree or not, see the relevance of that. The prophecies we are talking about. Something beyond the mind. Maybe outcome of intuition, maybe soulful connection, maybe that soul's connection, lesser soul's connection with greater soul, Jivatma's connection with Paramatma. You have got already linked with that. Na? So there is always something beyond the mind. Don't think about, the reason is the outcome of mind. What about, that beyond the mind, there are so many things, that's called transcendental idealism. He also talks about, the empirical idealism parallelly. And beyond that, one important point he emphasized, categorical imperatives. I'm going to discuss that. What is that? All human beings should be treated as ends, not as me. And now we have gone to the next level. This is maybe in the world of humanity, it's the justice. What about the world of, that the planet of the earth or the whole universe is not only for, the humanity. There are other species, flora, fauna. What about our obligation towards them? Where we speak about environmental ethics, our stewardship, obligation towards them. But of course, the Immanuel Kant restricts to humanity, the world of humanity and social justice. All human beings should be treated as, that ends, not as means. You might be aware. We have to, that. But unfortunately, what happened today? We respect things, but we use people and throw away. It's a highly pathetic scenario. Immature people. By the time they realize they are no more. It is that way we are talking about. So, categorical imperative. So, let me simply put it. This is what the major contributions. That I'm taking all those core simplified versions and speaking in the name of ethics. But what I'm doing, my humble attempt, to connect. This is not according to Success Sampath, the world of ethics. This is according to the greatest philosophers or thinkers in the world and greatest religions in the world. That ensure, that enrich the subject matter of ethics, that we are guided by that in the name of principles, in the name of, social values. We are guided by that whenever we encounter, that the confusion, the perplexion, the conflict of interest or situational constraints, we are guided by them. Ultimately, we live, that in peace. We are respected. And that the virtuous person, they are not waiting for, anybody's, that entitlement, that endorsement. By being virtuous, they are having self-contentment. That is what you got, unassuming leadership. There are leaders without titles I'm talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to connect today with Immanuel Kant and John Baudelaire, that Rawls, we say Kantianism and Rawlsianism. We say in general, of course, the spirit, already I'm keep on discussing. Now I'm giving, that the formalization or quantification to your understanding. That's what my role as a guide, a connector. And also finally linking with, that the case studies, that how the smart and effective solutions can be arrived at. We are going to discuss, that, and that takes you to the next level, application. Because 120 marks meant for theories, 130 marks meant for, case studies. Finally, resources to be consulted. I'm taking you to the next level, ladies and gentlemen. This is the right time. Yes. You can also refresh yourself, Valerie. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 second, please. Yes, I said, that the ethics as a subject matter is more than law, not compromising law. When limitations or rigidity you feel because of the law, which is said to be the social control, instruments in the world of, science, ultimately the tool of, knowledge-based society, guiding you. That's called ethics. Of course, that by being pragmatic or practical and also, flexible and without compromising law. That's very important. You become part of the solution, right? So ethics, that as in the name of principles, value systems, ultimately, guiding you whenever you are perplexed, confused, or whenever you face ethical dilemmas, whenever you face, the conflict of interest part of governing mechanism I'm talking about. Yes, so environment versus, that development. Do you speak in favor of environmental sustainability or economic development? Do you speak in favor of, that social integration, that where you see, that the situation never demands the imposition of Article 356 or national emergency? Or, that you speak in terms of mere, that economic development or material development or corporate development? That's why people are accused, corporate driven politics. And whether to speak, that take asylum in the world of, that agriculture laws, or to, that speak about fairness on the part of, agricultural communities, or even in the laws facing, the states, that Punjab and Haryana and associated protests, what's happening there, you might be aware, the fairness or justice. Of course, that whether to speak on behalf of your, that the fundamental right, as Balagangadhara Tilagar said, the freedom is my birthright. I will achieve it. You also speak about your fundamental rights, Article 12 to 35, that supporting you, corroborating you. But don't you understand, you got duties also parallelly? You got an obligation towards the nation. The fundamental duties, 11 duties, part of Indian Constitution. Rights and duties go together. They are inseparable. They go together. You can, the கடமையை செய்வதிலிருந்தே உரிமைகள் பிறக்கின்றன. எனக்கு அதை கொடுக்கல, இதை பண்ணல, you did nothing for me, that, you did not respect me. What you did, what way you behaved in a particular occasion, that made others to feel, that respected human beings. There comes another question. So we should not throw at stones, we should not throw stones at others when we are living in glass houses. We're talking about. So the competition versus, compatibility we are talking about. It is that way, that, so we all, that as citizens of India or as human beings, we've got responsibility. But at the same time, that there are some people with more responsibility, there are some people with less responsibility, given, that you have to understand, it's not level playing field. Accordingly, they should be entrusted with responsibility. We are talking about. It's not saying that all underdeveloped countries or developing countries, they've got, that they can compete with, developed nations when it comes to mitigating the greenhouse gases or reduction of greenhouse gases to the pre-1990 level as per Kyoto Protocol, as per United Nations Framework Convention on Climatic Change. The Conference of Parties meetings, we are talking about the part of United Nations Environment Program. Yes, that talks about, the environmental sustainability. Different yardsticks for different occasions. They keep on emphasizing, one shoe cannot fit everyone. You can't expect, a fish to climb a tree. The parameters varies. Nothing is absolutely correct and nothing is absolutely wrong. The context decides, because change is permanent. They're talking about that way. So, and one of the 7 sins, according to Mahatma Gandhi, politics without principles. Politics per se, that you might be aware, it's a noble profession. But, that the people, that who entered into politics, the bad elements, they contaminated the noble profession. Of course, the very politics what we are talking about, the young people, that should enter into politics, I say. You have, that social awareness, political awareness. Socialize yourself, that political socialization should be there. As long as you say, no, I don't like to, that's a ditch, that's a sakada. One day fine money, the sakada enters your home. You can't do anything by the time. So that's what, that the very Plato says, that when you refuse to, when you refuse to take part in politics, you can't, that escape from, that the rule by your own inferior, mediocre people, or corrupt people, or unethical people. That is what happening now. That is what happened. When anti-social elements are bold enough, when fools are bold enough and assertive and entering into politics, as an intellectual, can't you? As a good human being, want to do something good for the society, can't you? My appeal to you. But of course, when the purpose is great, you have to jail with others. It is not identifying only, no, I will enter into politics only when Mahatma Gandhi is there. Only Jawaharlal Nehru is there. No, you will never get. For this world, you are Mahatma Gandhi if you are an ethical person. You don't need anybody's entitlement, endorsement. Right? So that demands, some sort of, that, that poimayum vaimayidatte purai dirda nanmai payakum. That the teamwork demands, you to, some extent, that ultimately go with others, jail with others when the outcome is great. That's otherwise called teleological approach, part of ethics I'm talking about. When something is going to benefit, a greater for, the society, definitely you can, the gel with, that even, some bad elements, they can also be trained, we are talking about. But from ethical point of view, idealistically, speaking, that's wrong also. That's wrong also. This compromise has come to this level. The people in the past, compromise. Today, the compromise, has reached this level. You are unable to tolerate. And it has become a new norm, new normal. It has become reference point and source of inspiration for so many guys. If you lie, you can become great. If you indulge in corruption, you can accumulate weight. You can become social role model. Huh? How long? We are talking about, so the politics, that the ethics, politics without principles. One of the seven sins, according to Mahatma Gandhi, we are talking about, that there are corruption in kind, nepotism, favoritism, cronyism. India has become, that the scams studded nation. You might be aware. Sharada scam, Ponzi schemes we are talking about, and you might be aware. And the Colgate and Spectrum, the guys, part of the scams, they are speaking like greatest heroes. Oh, fools! As long as there are fools to listen them, they'll be speaking like great intellectual. We know who you are. You can cheat them. You can't escape the ultimate. At the end of the day, you're going to get reduced to tumbler of, we all, the tumbler of ash or 6 feet. Come on, behave yourself. I'm talking about that. So it is that way that they are assertive in public, and to support that the media, the corrupt media, ultimately. We are talking about the politics without principles. What are the seven sins? Whether to choose that a pure noble politics, or that the principles are that ultimately indulged in so-called that the corruption in kind I'm talking about. It is that way. So whether to speak in favor of the taking the society to next level, maybe economic development, by compromising a section of population, is it so? The 8-lane projects, that you heard in Tamil Nadu, of course, between Salem to Chennai. I'm talking about maybe to favor the corporate Jindal. Who asked you to go speedier? From Chengalpet to, the Paris Corner, that it takes, 2.5 hours to 3 hours. You might be aware. What is the use of going faster from here to there? And that too, by compromising agricultural lands of poor farmers. Growth should not be at the cost of future generation. There should be a balance to growth. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want mere economic growth. Otherwise, it's the growth of corporate at the cost of a section of population we are talking about. So there should be inclusive governance. It's not leaving a section of population. In democracy, I'm keep on emphasizing this particular point. You might be aware, that rejection leads to isolation. The rejection, the isolated people, one day fine morning, they will feel socially excluded. Then that leads to formation of social movements. They become, interest groups, pressure groups. They become, that instrumental or symbolic in pressurizing the government by coming to the streets, protesting, agitation. They take law on their own hands ultimately. Ultimately, government, in the name of controlling them, ultimately they will indulge in shooting order. Innocent civilians are getting killed ultimately. In the name of protecting corporate, you kill innocent civilians. In what way it is justified? It is not saying, you don't need, the struggle, the protest, all those stuff. It is part of, any democracy. The dissent is, part of democracy. But how do we, that understand that dissent and bring them, to the board for discussion and reach the consensus, so that, that different, multiple stakeholders, living amicably, happily, ensuring peace, that leads to prosperity, then that brings, happiness for everybody. That is the motto we are talking about. So, and good governance, from good governance to ethical governance, that's what I spoke. The very inclusive governance. It's not talking about, mere transparency, responsibility, accountability, but, that everything on paper and doing nothing. But of course, thanks to that, Kiran Bedi madam, that she does fantastic. She's very transparent and accountable and responsible. I know her personally. I've seen her. The role she plays, that in connecting, that the corporate on one hand, the people on the other, government people on the other. It's not talking about the limitations and becoming always part of the solution, as Dr. Kalam was, as Steve Jobs was. Your role is to simplify the complexity, not to complicate, because you are part of the solution. An optimist will see solution in every problem. A pessimist will see problem in every solution. I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, so ethical governance is all about solution. You are not constrained by the limitations or rigidity on the part of the law. Because where you practice the tools called, of course, as I said, the principle standards, you start listening to inner voice. You practice, ultimately integrity, the responsibility, the compassion, sensitivity, equity. It's not equality. Equity, the protective discrimination, positive discrimination. That is why you are talking about corporate social responsibility. You corporates, ultimately you benefited out of this particular society. Payback. 2% of your transaction you should be shared with that particular locality. Come on, you go and invest them. Show it's a matter of gratitude. Maybe you build a community center, recreation club for that particular community. Maybe build schools or health, hospital unit, whatever may be. You do something because you extracted the resources meant for that particular people. You have seen profit because of them. It's your payback time. Even Gujarat doctrine is centered around that. Taking care of our small neighborhood. If you don't take care of your neighbors, you can't stay in peace. Ethical governance is all about that, talking about corporate social responsibility. Even the scientists, you got scientific social responsibility. It is not mere research. The research with what outcome? Keep the end in mind. That should take the very society to the next level for the betterment of society. Because we are living in the world where we are talking about weapons of mass destruction, chemical, biological weapons. The very purpose of science is for the betterment of human beings. The technology has become double-edged sword. We are talking about ill effects of science and technology, all round pollution everywhere. It is that way. So ethical governance makes you humble, makes you understand. It is not mere economic diplomacy in the world of international relations. Ethical diplomacy. It is not only me attitude. So, the world as one family where all nations are stakeholders. Growth to one's own potential. So recognizing all these points we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, so it is that way we are talking about, that I think all these, that ethical dilemmas or conflict of interest part of the governing mechanisms we are talking about. Ultimately, you are guided by ethics, the principles or standards, whether it is personal domain, social domain, the public administration domain or environmental domain or even the international relations. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that you got effectively that the very information about what is ethics so far. You understood that before that's my regular ritual that there are newcomers every time attending where I feel responsible. I'm sorry, people already attended, probably that you would have got reinforced, and every session, the name of introduction, I try to make difference also, and that's my humble attempt. Please tolerate me. Ladies and gentlemen, that the best is yet to come. Yes, what is the point? The ethics, integrity, aptitude, the very of the subject what I'm talking about, part of GS paper for 250 marks. Very well, we spoke at length. 120 marks meant for theories, 130 marks meant for the case studies we are talking about, applying the theories in practical situations. Otherwise, the social problems, you are going to provide ethical solution. And the very description about the syllabus is like this: candidates' attitude and approach, issues relating to integrity and probity in public life. The integrity, it's not citing reason. Take moral responsibility. Have courage. Courage is knowing what not to fear, and courage is the salvation we're talking about. Have guts. Throw away. When you feel you are very smart in that room, it is the time you have to change the room. It is not scolding everybody. And you may be out of the system, but you always work for welfare of the system. Otherwise, that is the problem on the part of visionaries. It's good to be ideal. If you are visionary, people will say you are crazy, even if you end up. Even Mark Zuckerberg, that reinforcing that particular view, you might be aware. An idea should not die in the beginning. The herd mentality, ultimately, that should not stop you. So, that never compromise, that have courage, the courage when it will come, the guts when it will come, as long as you are, that a man of principle. As long as, that unwavering commitment, that towards the principles or value system you practice, nobody can shake you. I'm talking about, so integrity, probity in public life, and problem-solving approach to various issues and conflicts faced by, that as an individual in dealing with the society. You see in the name of case studies. Variety of ethical dilemmas, are various issues, that we have already seen the examples. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you. This is what the very syllabus, of course, that talks about the theories as well as, the case study. The titles, ethics and human interface, your attitude, your aptitude, and foundational values for civil service. The emotional intelligence, of course, that you talk about. It's your ability that takes you to the greater heights, but it's your character that keeps you there forever. It's your ability that takes you to the greater heights, but it's your emotional intelligence that keeps you there forever. Your attitude decides, your altitude. We are talking about வெள்ளத்தனையது மலர்நீட்டம் மாந்தர்தம் உள்ளத்தனையது உயர்வு எண்ணம் போல் வாழ்வு. There are sayings in Tamil. We spoke many a times, that this decides, this attitude, the character in you decides your altitude, the heights, greater heights. I'm not talking about, the today's heights, that one day fine morning you see the guys are great, the next day they will shatter in front of your eyes. That's likely to happen. They'll go to jail. They'll go to Tihar. Don't worry. You're going to see a lot of ministers there. It's that way, that, don't get misled by those bad role models. All that glitters is not gold. Okay. You're going to witness, the time is the best medicine. Everything the time will tell. We are talking about, so, ultimately the contributions of moral thinkers, that's what, the Western thinkers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, utilitarianism school, we spoke, of course, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. Today we are going to discuss, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, and, that John Baudelaire Rawls, the American philosopher. You might be aware. Immanuel Kant or Kantianism, John Baudelaire Rawls, of course, that Rawlsianism we say. I think, we are going to discuss, several thinkers who enrich the very subject matter of ethics, you might be aware. And also public civil service, that values ethics in public administration. I spoke many occasions, even the case studies we will be discussing again. The probity in governance. So all this we are talking about, and its application, that's otherwise called the case study. 130 marks, 120 marks plus 130 marks we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is the right time. Let me take you to the, the today's interaction, the today's bone of contention, the thinkers. Excuse me. I think I'm drinking more water, the demand. You can also drink. Nothing wrong. It's good, na? Anyway, drinking more water. That your memory is based on, memory is linked with water, or your way? Come on, drink more water. Number one, health. Number two, good memory. But as long as you are passionate and practice, you'll always have fantastic memory. That's a different story. You might be aware. Please drink water parallelly. Yes! Immanuel Kant. Who is this Immanuel Kant? Of course, that a German philosopher we are talking about. Okay. Yes. Who gave the concepts, we spoke already. Transcendental idealism. Transcend means go beyond. Transcendental. Go beyond the mind. Go beyond, brain. Go beyond the restrictions of mind. Go beyond your mere reasoning. Because the reason is outcome of your mind. Outcome of your thinking. There are some ideas beyond your mind. Otherwise, the so-called, the mathematics, science, everything what you talk about, that mind is not a plain slate that where you can feed some information, later you can retrieve like, that your CPU like. What about, there could have been some other informations already, right? Maybe linked with soul. Maybe the link with, the greatest soul. Linked with the universe. That is what, you would have heard about transcendental meditation, Brahma Kumaris. This term is not new to you. There is German taking you. You are not constrained by your mind, the thinking, the petty thinking. That as long as your mind thinks fantastic, no, nothing wrong. Something beyond the mind. So idealism, ideas beyond the mind, beyond the constraints of mind. The empirical realism, he talks about, pragmatism, show me proof attitude. And that's based on, the logical connectivity, maybe talking about science world. The reasoning is the outcome of that, the justification outcome of that. So it is linking with that. You will come to know. And, his approach is called deontological. What is deontological? Deon means duty. Logy, study about duty. That the world of ethics, that I think I spoke with you many times about this. Two things, that one is teleological approach, another one is deontological approach. In teleological approach, that you might be aware, you are always concerned about the outcome. What will be the outcome? So otherwise say end justifies the means. Your focus on the outcome. The utilitarianism perspective, where we talk about maximum happiness for maximum people, is based on the outcome. Teleological approach. But this Immanuel Kant approach is called deontological approach. What do you mean by deontological approach? Focus on what you do. Maybe it's almost like the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Nishkama karma. It is renunciation in duty, not renunciation of duty. Your focus should be on what you do, Otherwise, let me say this way, what you do with what you have. You have everything, but are you doing anything? Are you applying the presence of mind? Use your brain. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, that way. So, the deontological approach we are talking about. So, a focus on duty we are talking about. So, moral theory grounded in the idea of duty. This is according to Emmanuel. Maybe karma theory. What do you call it? Focus on, that what do you do? That it is that way, that deontological. What do you mean by deontological? An action is seen as moral in virtue of its being a duty. You are responsible, duty bound, committed, action bound, because that action speaks louder than words, because preaching is easier than practice. You might be aware. You don't want your eloquence, utterance. That's already bad politicians doing. They are well known for violating all those manifestos. You might be aware. Double standards. Don't do that. You are different. You are the future leader. You're going to make difference, because winners don't do different things. They do things differently. You might be aware. Even Shiv Khera. Even the very Niti Ayog, what we have got, we are tired of plans. We want action. From plan to action. National Institute for Transforming India. We're talking about. Of course, people say it should be backed by finance. That's another criticism. Yes, the deontological action is seen as moral in virtue of its being duty. An ideal mind is devil's workshop. If you focus on your duty, everything will streamline. Come on. That the people, without, the doing anything, they make, of course. And they are responsible for all those problems and complicating things. And they will try to, fish in the troubled water then, finally. It's that way. So, if you're duty bound, it's totally different. The Karma Veerar Kamaraj, the greatest Kamaraj, greatest politician in India, you might be aware. Karma Veerar. Duty bound, felt responsible. So, otherwise, you feel obligatory on your part. Or that you become obedience to moral laws. What is right? It's not, that succumbing to, what is comfort or sensual pleasure. What is right? You got choices in front of you. The moment you choose your comfort, you lose your identity. Please choose your, that choice. What is that? What is right? We are talking about that way, ladies and gentlemen. So, most influential philosopher in the history of, the very Western philosophy we are talking about. Why? Because of his deontological approach, transcendental idealism, and empirical realism. Not only that, this gentleman, of course, that you come to know. And let me take you to the next level. Yes, universally valid moral rule of action, which is otherwise called categorical imperative. He has given phraseology for that. Categorical imperative. It's a moral rule. Whoever may be, whatever may be their race, whatever may be, that the class hierarchy, whatever may be the caste hierarchy. So, categorical imperatives. What it says, all human beings are ends in themselves. That is the end. Even as Mahatma Gandhi ji said, whenever you got, perplexed, confused, that am I doing right or wrong, think about poorest of the poor. Because they are also human beings. The uniqueness, whatever you do, when it is going to benefit those poorest of the poor, you are on track. So, it's not neglecting them. It's not rejecting them. And even the great Arinjaranna gone to next level. Ezhayin siripil iraivanai kanalam in Tamil. You see God, that in the smiles of, that the poor people. Because you make, that smiles on their face. You make difference in their lives by addressing their basic, the needs, roti, kapada, makan. Or even, the populistic measures are justified that way. All human beings should be treated as, the end, not as means. The people are not for exploitation. And there comes another saying, in India, poverty is functional for politicians, dysfunctional for, the poor people. As long as they are poor, otherwise, that there is an attempt, organized attempt to keep them, that in poverty. So that, that the corporates benefiting by exploitation. Otherwise, why even Indian economy kept under, the consumerism model? so that that they will get reduced to consumers. Finished goods of that or R&D of developed countries will be supplied here, imported here, so that they become rich always. That's corporate machination. We are talking about in the name of globalization. To further the cause, you got variety of international institutions to condition you. How come you can, are the people living in underdeveloped countries, developing countries, not human beings? For Robacar, it's not, that delivering goods only to the people your people, your community. That is what Swami Vivekananda says, that it is a difficulty, the greatest difficulty to maintain, that equal affection to all human beings. That's very great. That very, very, very difficult actually. That demands extraordinary maturity. Whether you are prime minister, whether you are, the Aam Aadmi, local councillor, one and the same. Will you? Of course, protocol is different in official circle. You have guts. What about Article 14, Article 15? Equality before law, equality of law. Do you have guts? And you are not afraid of anything. You have courage because the principles you stood for. Nothing. You become, that. So that is what I mean. Even there is, the one Abhirami Pattar. Yes, he was rescued by Abhirami, Lord Abhirami. That's the world of pious stories. You might be aware. As long as you believe in truth, nobody can shake you. As long as you stand for the principles, nobody can stop you. They're talking about. So what I'm talking about, so the treatment, that demands maturity on your part, ethicality on your part, to treat everybody alike. All human beings to be treated as ends themselves, not as means. Come on, let's bring, that Mahatma Gandhi ji. That's why Mahatma Gandhi ji gone to the extent of saying, that hate the sins, not the sinner, rather love the sinner. Of course, we speak, we criticize constructively. At least all these words, that may not reach them. At least, that the people trying to get, misled or deceived by those bad role models. You all awake. It's my duty to make you aware. God given opportunity. At the same time, you have to understand, you hate the sins. You disapprove that, that the actions of sins, not the very human being. This too shall pass. One day, fine morning, that guy also will undergo change. Maybe through his, his own son, one day, fine morning, will be saying, I don't want any of your property. Let me go out of the family. Probably that may be opportunity for him to change. May the wife, that one day commit, that suicide, telling that, I don't want you this ill-gotten money. I don't subscribe you. That day, he may change, or he may get, it's negativity. I'm sorry to speak about this. Something, that unexpected, that he can't tolerate happens in his life. Maybe miracle from God angle. He transforms. It will happen. By the time he realizes, that's what I'm saying, that he's no more. Time, energy, money, the triangle, time, energy. That, it varies, that you are always running after any one of these three elements. If you have, that when you got, that time and money, having earned everything, you don't have energy. When you got energy and time at the young age, you are running after money. When you got, that energy, money, maybe, that, God is not giving you much time. Your time is over. Oh my God. So, that hate the sin, not the, to err is human being. So there is a thing, I'm giving equal, parallel, that parallelism for all the contributions of, Immanuel Kant, categorical imperative. This is how the questions are asked. Maybe according to Immanuel Kant, in the categorical imperatives, all human beings will be, that treated as ends. That what do you understand by this? You have to understand from other thinkers. The Thiruvalluvar says, it is that way. குணம் நாடி குற்றமும் நாடி அவற்றுள் மிகை நாடி மிக்க கொள். You can't identify, that nothing is, that nothing, there is no perfect person in the world. As the Buddha said, that சாவே இல்லாத வீட்ல ஒரு பிடி அரிசி வாங்கிட்டு வாங்க. I want to get, that a handful of rice, from the family which never met, that death of any of the members in family members. Is it possible? When you talk about, product, there will be issues. That's why support and service concept, that AMC you're talking about. There is no product without free from, without, free from issues. No human beings free from problems. It's not the problems. The problems are wonderful opportunities for us to identify solution, because we are part of the solution. It is not, that it's not the problem. It is how do we respond to the problem. It is not reacting to the problem I'm talking about. Responding to the problem decisive. And what the lesson we learn out of the problem, that matters a lot. That is the scenario we are talking about. So, Gunam Nadi, Kuttamam Nadi, Avatul Migai Nadi Mikakural. This is Tirukural. According to that, what is the best out of everybody? You take, you ignore their mistakes. Ignore. Forgive, forget. You move. This too shall pass. Later they will realize, ultimately they will come and reinforce once again. Strengthen your hand. That demands, some time. You have to allow some time for them. They're talking about. So, categorical imperatives, that don't hate human beings. All human beings end in themselves, that it is that way. Men cannot be treated as instruments. They're not for exploitation. They're not for your, so manipulation. That's what all politicians manipulating. The name of identity politics, appealing or influencing, trying to influence the voting behavior of the masses by caste appeal, by populistic measures. நான் அதை கொடுக்குறேன், இதை கொடுக்குறேன், ஆத்தா ஆடு கொடுத்தது, மாடு கொடுத்தது, making them, the parasites. There is a saying, the proverb in Chinese, that don't share with them, that the very fish. That gives them, only short-term solution. Share the technology of fishing. That gives long-term solution, lifelong solution. Don't make him, the dependent on you. Don't make him as parasites, complacents, the name of populistic measures. Of course, in the beginning you need it. How long? Of course, that is equivalent to social security schemes of, the Western world, no doubt. But it is not continuing the same. They should be given this particular family only this duration. You will be supported. After that, you should grow. You want to see transformation in your, in your life. Maybe beginning roti kapada makan. After that, don't you have self-respect? But unfortunately, what happened? The politicians very keen in keeping this freebies, telling that I gave. Ego. I did. Whose money? கடத்தங்க எடுத்து வழிப்புள்ளையாருக்கு உடைக்கிறது. That you take, that a coconut from, that a provision store and break in front of, that the Lord Vinayaga. When the grocery shop owner is asking money, you say, no, I broke in front of God only. No, it's not for me. But whose coconut? Whose resources? I did. That my government. Are you not ashamed of saying that, it's not your government, people's government. People chose you. But have you did justice for that? We are talking about that. So men cannot be treated as instruments of, that for securing supposedly the so-called higher ends, your ends, exploitation, manipulation. As I said, identity politics, not only caste, the religion, the language, the son of the soil theory, reason, by emotional appeal. Oh my God. So profound impact on every philosophical movement. So this categorical imperatives, otherwise the contributions of Immanuel Kant, what we say, the transcendental idealism, that otherwise, that empiricalism we are talking about. So action is moral if it is the outcome of the moral agent's sense of duty. When that action is moral, only when the actor, dutiful, responsible, out of his sense of duty, when he performs that action, then it is moral. Then you are committed. You're a man of commitment, women of commitment. You are responsible. You show integrity in that particular occasion. You are sensitive to that particular occasion, and you are practical, you are pragmatic, and you are flexible there to be part of the solution we are talking about. So it is outcome of, that the moral agents, the agents sense of duty, because you felt obligatory, you are obliged. Sometimes you are apologetic when you understand that you committed mistakes. You never hesitate to say sorry. Even if it is going to be a small kid, don't forget to ask that sorry. That is a greatness in you. Even if it is going to be the greatest, whether it is the president of USA or prime minister of India or United Nations Secretary General, even the Almighty God, we netrikan tirapinum kutram kutrame. That's Nakiran statement we are talking about. Even if it is going to be Almighty God, that as long as they they deviate from the truth, it is wrong. Do you have guts enough, courage enough? Only when you are a principled person. That that is the thing. So where you treat all human beings as that equal. All human beings are treated as ends. You are balanced. Whoever may be, whatever may be their capacity, are ready to undergo that sacrifice. So what? Eh? That nothing stops you. Nothing stops you. As long as you are man of principle or women of principle, man of value system, women of value system, because that gives you happiness. The virtue gives you happiness. We are talking about, so that's outcome of your the morality. You feel obliged to perform that particular action, then it is called ethical or moral. We are talking about. Let me take you to the next level. That's deontological. So the contributions to metaphysics. Meta means beyond. You talk about. You go beyond the branch of philosophy. Deals with that abstract concepts we are talking about. That's metaphysics, where you talk about abstract concepts, being, knowing, identity, time, space. In that sense, we are talking about his contributions. Not only that, the metaphysical world, there you are talking about transcendental idealism, and also epistemology. It's a part of philosophy. And ethics and aesthetics, that his general contributions we are talking about, that. So that's Immanuel Kant. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. So the epistemology is part of philosophy, especially the theory of knowledge, where we are talking about, especially the methods and its validity, scope, distinction between justified belief and opinion. I'm talking about this way. This is epistemology we are talking about. So metaphysics, epistemology, aesthetics, you are perfect connoisseur, right? Appreciating beauty, fineness, art, culture, aesthetic sense. You become perfect connoisseur, you might be aware. And ethics, of course, the principle value system guiding you when you're perplexed. That's what we are talking about. So Kant's answer, that ultimately, what can we know? What can we learn? And is that our, that so mere knowing of, that the knowledge, say, that science, that is called, that the empirical world. Is that our own knowledge, the constraint because of, the mere mathematics or science, the outcome of mind or the reasoning or justification, or anything beyond that? There is a question. It is impossible to extend the knowledge to the super sensible realm or speculative metaphysics. He gone to that extent. Otherwise, it is not something you feed, you get out of the mind. There could have been, there's some prior knowledge, right? The mind itself. Maybe that's linking with soul, linking with greater entity. That's transcendental we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, taking beyond that, the very science, the scientific world outcome, what do you get? There could be something more than that. It is taking, that possibilities, talking about possibilities, and taking you to, the something beyond the established paradigm, where you start appreciating, that innovation we are talking about. It is that we are maybe, the transcendental, go beyond the mind, the constraints we are talking about. So his emphasis on abstract laws, the concepts, ultimately, he took extreme position. He got to that, the metaphysics we are talking about. So, that knowledge, according to him, the Immanuel Kant says, knowledge has got constraints, that you are constrained, you are restricted, you are confined, you are limited because of the knowledge. That's what I'm saying. When all intellectuals with full of doubts whether to do this or that, fools are very assertive, very bold. But intellectuals are maybe according to that theory, but I can't say, because nothing is absolute, everything is relative. Maybe according to today's situation you can, but tomorrow it may change, because for every thesis, and because a lot of theories ultimately coming to their mind to guide them, and ultimately they'll be detached. Somewhere they stay, but they are detached, not owning responsibility. And given the transitory status we are talking about, the transition, they understood nothing is permanent. But whereas, fool guys, the fools are bold enough, assertive. I say this is. Hmm? I am everything, ahankar. The very ethics is the subject which puts knife on your ahankar. That puts knife on your ahankar. Even the Socratic irony we spoke, right? That I knew nothing. Socrates said, I knew nothing. But of that particular philosophy. Even I say, I know nothing. I'm also like you. I'm also trying to learn. Maybe as a teacher, as a guide, as a mentor, a page ahead of you. I'm your co-traveler. The ever learning, that student syndrome in me, as in you. That is the connectivity that makes you humble. That makes you humble. The beauty of the learning, you come to know there are so many things to be learned. That gives you satisfaction. But at the same time, you feel nothing. Even Saraswati, Lord Saraswati is said to be learning in the world of Hinduism. That makes you humble, simple, not arrogant. You become moderate, as said by Aristotle. You take middle path, don't take extremes. Of course, that the very Immanuel Kant says knowledge has got constraints. What happens, why he says the mind plays an active role in constituting the features of experience and limiting the mind's access only to the empirical realm of space and time. Know that the world of knowledge is constrained in terms of space and time. The universe is defined in this way, space and time. The whole universe is nothing but space and time. You got even on the planet of the earth, you got how do you define? Locate, latitude, longitude, over. Otherwise, that not, everything changes. How? Spatially, temporally. You speak this way. The whole universe is defined in terms of space and time. We're talking about to understand. The mind. The world of knowledge. That explain the empirical real. That in terms of space and time. That it mind plays active role in constituting the features of experience. The structured experiences, otherwise called their reason, that gives justification, rationalization. So, that the very Immanuel Kant, that you might be aware, argued against empiricists. Show me proof attitude. Na? He says, that don't get constrained by mind. After all, mind is defined in terms of space and time. Something is beyond the mind is there. He argued against empiricists, his predecessors. Empiricists, who are all called empiricists, they run after verification. Show me proof attitude. Empiricalism, you might be aware, empiricism otherwise. So mind is not a blank slate that is written upon by the empirical world. That how come you can take it for granted as if mind is very plain? You came and fed some information. Whenever you want, that have some information, you retrieve from there. Who asked you to consider that view that mind is, empty? There could have been some other prior knowledge, right? When it came to this world, right? As a human being, when you are born in this world, you've got a mind, the thinking. Maybe you're meant for a particular purpose. Maybe your connectivity with the greater part. Of course, I don't know. So the mind is not a blank slate, according to Immanuel Kant. That is written upon by the empirical world. It's not a blank slate, that according to Immanuel Kant. He rejected, that rationalists or empiricists, who take asylum in the name of, that reasoning as the outcome of the mind, or the knowledge, that defined in terms of space and time. So pure prior knowledge of the mind is in an mind independent world is possible. Why there can't be, that a knowledge, that beyond the mind? You understand, no? Beyond the so-called your definition of mind in terms of space and time. Why there can't be a possibility? I used to tell in our day-to-day life, that things, that which you don't know doesn't mean, that it is not existing. You don't know, that's all. So many things we don't know. With our limited knowledge, we say this is right, I'm great, I'm being, you are wrong, I am right, this attitude. There are so many things which we don't know. Doesn't mean that they are not existing. Probably we don't have sensitivity to recognize, once you're aware of this, you become humble. You won't become judgmental. The moment you become judgmental, you stop learning. Be open-minded. This is almost like opening your mind. Don't get constrained by the knowledge which defined in terms of space and time. Don't get, that constrained in terms of the mind which reasons out everything. That could be something, that beyond the mind. Prior to this knowledge, independent of the mind. Why not? And also, that there is an attempt, that the aliens are sending through light signal, laser signal, their information. That, how sensitive we are in decoding them. Otherwise, we send information about this part of the earth to other aliens also parallelly. The world of aliens, the interaction happening. Why not? So it is that. So what do you mean by reason? The reason, that the structured with forms of experience and categories that give a phenomenal and logical structure. Let me put this way. That structured experience I'm talking about. The structured with forms of experience and categories that give phenomenal and logical structure to any possible object of, that empirical experience. That is what reason. Otherwise, put, the structured experience. That's what. Otherwise, excuse me, structured experience you call, that reasoning. Take it that way. So this cannot be, that avoided. According to, that Immanuel Kant, that it cannot be avoided to get at, that to get at a mind independent world. We are talking about reason cannot be circumvented. Reason cannot be avoided, but they are necessary. You need, mind. You need, that the reason necessary for experience of spatio-temporal. Otherwise, the experience, the knowledge that you define in terms of, that space and time we are talking about. Definitely, you need the support of mind. Then only you can, that recognize the knowledge defined in terms of, the very space and time with their casual cause and effect, casual causal behavior and logical property, cause and effect, logical connectivity. Definitely, you need mind, no doubt at all. But according to him, that a pure prior knowledge of mind independent world is possible. Transcendental, you go beyond the mind. The knowledge, the ideas, beyond the mind, transcendental idealism, and the world of, that the empiricism, that the knowledge defined in terms of space and time. For that, definitely you need mind, no doubt. It cannot be, that avoided. According to Immanuel Kant, do you understand? We are talking about. Let me take you to the next level. Yes, the criticisms, of course, that we are talking about. Now it is time for criticizing. See, Immanuel Kant, you are always talking about deontological. What you do? What's your obligation? Maybe it's a sense of moral agent's duty or obligation. Are you not ritual guy or ceremonial guy? When you don't think about, that keep end in the mind. If you're not bothered about it, it's not always Bhagavad Gita. But here you have to think about outcome. You have to think about, that what will be the consequence. If you don't, think about consequences. Keep the end in mind. We are talking about, so without regard to the consequence or results, that, so if you focus mere on duty, it's almost like the criticism against Immanuel Kant I'm talking about. It is a rigid adherence to the principles. A ceremonies, rituals. In our practice, day-to-day life, we are witnessing people. They'll be, I'm in meeting, I'm there, here, they will say. Hey, what purpose you're going for meeting here? Eh? People in the name of going to temple, now they'll be rash driving and killing, the 2 to 3 people, otherwise causing accident. Otherwise, the faulty driving, the people got disturbed, that resulted in accident. He is unaware, but he will go to temple. For the sake of, that your prayer in front of the God, who asked you to kill somebody? Understand the purpose. The moment, that's what role of Dr. Kalam. The beauty of Dr. Kalam, that anybody meeting him in any organization, he will try to connect that guy with the whole of that particular organization. You are part of the whole, so that you get holistic idea. You feel humble. You understand your responsibility to keep the system big. You got bigger role to play. And also making him understand, that how important he or she is in that particular project. It's making others feel, that how important they are. That is what the beauty of ethics. It is not outrightly rejecting, you know nothing, we have everything. Then why you came to me? If they are not needed, why you came to him? Come on, you go. If not you, he will have somebody else, na? That is what in the world of that's what love your job. It's not a job. Love your career. Be passionate in your career. Don't love your company because you don't know when the company is going to stop loving you. But if you're passionate in what you do, you can create the greatest companies in the world. Right? It is that way attitude should be there. It's not simply adhering to the ritual ceremonies, meeting, that thing. What is the purpose? What is the end? We are talking that way. So without regard to the consequences or results. Otherwise, it's not doing postmortem later. What went wrong? What went wrong? Where is your proactiveness? Where is your contemplation, envisagement? If not there, I'm saying there is no process there. If that is the case, I will say there is no process there. Don't we have process? Yes, of course, that. Then where is your Six Sigma approach I'm talking about? The flawless performance. Of course. What about backup? What about alternatives? So everything we speak, that it's not ritual or ceremonial, rigid adherence to the principles or ceremonies. We have to understand the consequence, the purpose, that. So the criticism, what Emmanuel's focus on duty, do your duty, it's not the purpose and it is the direction. And what is the direction? It's the speed thrills but kills. Of course, speed and steady wins the race. We understand. It's not a purpose. It's a direction with direction. It's not a progress. Purpose. And it is not purpose. And purpose with a direction. Of course, that hope, that the people will understand. So, moral laws, kanuns, cannot be conceived in Platonic world and implemented in society without taking into account, that the results. That is what 21st century demands the tools for, that a different kind of tools, innovative tools, modern tools. Don't live with, 19th century mentality. The obedience hierarchy. Oh my God. Huh? So, that it is not moral laws conceived in Platonic world, Greek philosopher, that some, that 300 BC, 400 BC, the very laws cannot be implemented today. We expect your new avatar 2.0 to meet this 21st century. That demands, that you have to empower other people. That is what, that the idea of 21st century. Delegation, right person for the right post, then equipping. It is not choosing wrong person and expecting, demanding more. That's what happening. That spoils the whole system. Delegation, management by delegation. There is a Tirukural. Idanai, Idanal, Ivan Mudikum, Endraraindu, Adanai Avan Kanvidal. It is not, everything shouldering, that 100% responsibility and doing nothing. Otherwise, everything in mess. Creating teams with the right people. And as I said, Warren Buffett, of course, that intelligence and energy, okay. What about integrity? If you don't have, integrity, this intelligence and energy on the part of those recruited guys will kill the organization I'm talking about. Or they practice integrity? That's important. So we are talking about, so modern, this 21st century demanding, that you to go for delegation, empowering other people. That demands, that guy develops, that gratitude, integrity, loyalty to the organization. He will take, that as if his own. And have you recruited those people? I'm asking the question. So it is that way. So moral laws cannot be conceived in Platonic world and implemented in the society without taking into account, this results. So you have to understand, the innovation, creativity, this criticism, that. So of course, that Immanuel Kant speaking in favor of, that particular, that ideas, is that relevant to the 21st century? There comes, another criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take, that the very German philosopher, Immanuel Kant, whose contribution, that of course, transcendental idealism and empiricism and the categorical imperatives. Now, all human beings should be treated as ends, not as means. That's fantastic. Let me take you to the next level. Yes. Rawlsianism. Here you got, American, most influential American philosopher after World War II. You might be aware, especially through, he became famous because of his book called Theory of Justice, where he recommended hypothetical subjects to establish a hypothetical society. This contribution of this John Baudelaire's, that Rawls, called as Rawlsianism, as we have seen, Kantianism, Immanuel Kant now, the German philosopher, this is, American philosopher, very influential. As he was, influential in European society, here American society we are talking about. So his contribution towards, moral philosophy and public administration, that's why we took him. What is the point? He challenged the principle called utilitarian principle. You know what is utilitarian principle? Given by, English utilitarians, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. What is that? Maximum happiness for maximum people. That's what utilitarian principle. It's based on hedonism, where you choose pleasure is better than pain. But that pleasure is not unethical. It's not by exploiting others. This utilitarianism is otherwise called the universal, the case of ethical hedonism, altruism. Out of 10 people, 9 people are benefiting out of it. Come on, go ahead. This is how democracy works. So he challenged that notion. As I said, that I'm repeatedly, citing that example. What is that? How come you can expect a fish to climb a tree? The parameter itself wrong. It's not comparing with monkey, how, brilliant it is. Na? But of course, if you try, if not today, tomorrow you will. It is not motivating, the fish, comparing with monkey. Oh my God, different yardsticks for different people, different parameters for different set of people. That is what leadership, right? It's not making unequals as equals. All are equal. Okay, human beings, fantastic. But what about, that equity? You have to understand unique problems on the part of every people, unique talent on the part of every people. That demands you to, devise a different scale. You go for, protective discrimination, positive discrimination, reservation, without compromising meritocracy. Without compromising meritocracy. Where you do justice. Out of 10 people, 8 people, fantastic. Okay, utilitarianism, good. What about the left out 2? You have to devise another tool. Then only it is called inclusive governance. As I said, in democracy, rejection leads to isolation, social exclusion. They will cause, that all round, that as it's happening in Delhi. In the name of, that the protest against the laws of agriculture, that we are talking about. You have to devise another tool. Come on, let's go for legislation so that they will never get, that ultimately exploited. Why not? Why not consensual approach? That way, government is working towards that consensus, you might be aware. So it is that way. So utilitarian, he questioned that utilitarian principle. It's not treating all are equal. What about left out people? So that demands you to understand the principle of equity. So his contribution, John Baudelaire Rawls, Rawlsianism is all about moving from equality to equity. We are talking about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, especially on ethics and integrity, which has got the responsibility of 250 marks out of 1750 in your mains written, especially in general studies out of 1000. The ethics paper has got the responsibility of 250. You might be aware. The fourth paper of GS, where 120 meant for theories and 130 marks meant for case studies. The 120, the theories, the contributions of various thinkers, having discussed Western moral thinkers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and English utilitarians, that Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill. Today we are discussing, of course, the Immanuel Kant or Kantianism, and I know that, of course, he was, the German philosopher, and now we are discussing the most influential American philosopher through his contribution at Theory of Justice, the John Baudelaire Rawls or Rawlsianism, where he says, that equality, from equality to equity, that's ethics. How? By going for hypothetical subjects. And he challenged the utilitarianism principle. It's not equality. Equality will not always work. One shoe cannot fit everyone. Fit for all approach will never work. You have to understand, that equity principle, unique problems. People are unique. The uniqueness on the part of every sections of population. So Rawls' principles of, the justice invite a strong support and criticism as well. They're talking about. Yes, this is a book, a theory of, that the social justice, John Rawls, in that book, he recommended, that ultimately he prescribed a hypothetical situation involving hypothetical subjects. You know that it is suggestive, it's a guess, it's imaginary, it's not in true, it's not real. So, hypothetical situation involving hypothetical subject and given the task. What is the task? Those people were given, he took into account a section of population, they were assigned a particular task. The task to create what? To create a political and economic system for a society, a justice based political and economic system in a society. To live after reaching an agreement. You just, that reach, that a contract. After that, you live there. To create, that a just society, they were assigned the task. They are called hypothetical subjects. Why hypothetical subjects? That they were put under, that behind the veil of ignorance. What do you mean by veil of ignorance? That they are given only partial information. They know nothing about themselves. And otherwise, that they are given some information with which they can live. Because once they know about them, probably there is a possibility they may get influenced. Once they know their identity. So that is what called veil of ignorance. Veil of ignorance is all about you know nothing about yourself and your natural ability, your position in the society, or your identity in the society. Once you know, probably that will influence your decision. It's almost like the Ganyapic experiments. What you do in your laboratory. The same way this is in social laboratory. Hypothetical subject, hypothetical situation to establish, how a section of people coming and agreeing over the two different kinds of principles to establish a just society. Through theory of justice, this is according to, John Baudelaire, Rawls. And that they were given when only, that less information, that not much information. The veil of, the ignorance we are talking about. This veil of ignorance deprived them of knowledge about their social position, income, wealth, because there will be character accordingly, gender, religion, there may be identity then. Since they could not take advantage, to improve the situation for themselves, probably their immediate descendants. Otherwise, they will go for, think about personal benefits or practice nepotism, favoring their own people, corruption in kind otherwise. So, that they were deprived of, that knowing their identities, more or less. And they were given basic information also, that otherwise they can't, understand. Na? So how come you can stop? The things, relevant informations were given, but, things capable of, making them prejudiced were deprived. It is that way, veil of ignorance we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the next level. But, they were given the basic knowledge about their social organization, that and the very human psychology. And the social goods, that every rational person needed the social goods, what you're talking about, the opportunities, the rights, the liberties, and the wealth and self-respect, everything taken into account, that. So the basic information necessary for their survival given, but not the identity. Probably they may get influenced. Here we are talking about John Baudelaire Rawlsianism, especially, that through his book called A Theory of Justice, where he recommended how hypothetical subjects given hypothetical situation, they were assigned a task. What the task? Task of establishing a just society, a political and economic system. The people come and agree over what are all the basic principles. Accordingly, they come and agree over two principles. One is equality, another one is equity. The world of ethics, we say the ethics is all about moving from equality to equity. Who said this? You come to know. I'm connecting with the contributors. You understand? And even in Indian context, if you go for, that how you see this equity in terms of protective discrimination, positive discrimination, in terms of reservation, in terms of, that article 15 bracket 4, 16 bracket 4. Nothing in this article shall prevent a state or central government from providing special provisions for weaker section and minorities we are talking about. Article 17, 18, 24, 29, 13, 45, 164, 270. I'm keep on telling in every session because that gets reinforced in you, I believe. And 338, 340, 342, 5th schedule, 6th schedule, 73rd, 74th constitutional amendment. 1/3 of reservation for women we talk about, that in local bodies. And taking care of minorities, transgender, and even Supreme Court judgments, treating, the special people on par with SC/STs when it comes to admissions in educational institutions. Everything you talk about, from equality to equity. In Indian context also, it's quite relevant. The protective discrimination, positive discrimination. Even the freebies, affirmative actions of the governments are getting justified on these grounds we are talking about. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So, from equality to equity, that is the essence of the Rawlsianism. Of course, to establish a just and morally acceptable society, according to Baudelaire Rawls, are called Rawlsianism. That the people, the hypothetical subjects were expected to agree on two principles of justice. What are all those? One, civil liberty, otherwise talking about equality. Another one is, that equity principle. So, you have to understand, that equality, another one is equity. What is equality? Of course, where we are given all round freedom. Article 12 to 35, part of the Indian Constitution, fundamental rights we are talking about. The freedom of speech, expression, right to assembly, right to vote. Of course, it is not free from reasonable restrictions. Of course, when individuals are violated all around these freedoms, of course, you can approach the courts, high courts, supreme courts. Article 32, 226, we are talking about. As said by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, is the heart and soul of the Constitution, the fundamental rights. And at the same time, that the people should understand all are, that equal. But what about, that all are not equal? The problems are not one and the same. People with different history, people with, from, different, the denomination, identities, different histories, different victimization, different stories, otherwise you are talking about. So, they should be discriminated, protected, otherwise. This is called difference principle. Different yardsticks for different occasion. One shoe cannot fit everyone. Fit for all approach will never work. We are talking about. So, to guarantee equality of opportunity, to make them, come up, that so as to reach the level playing field, you have to provide that reservation. Protective discrimination. Now, we gone to the next level. Even all upper caste people are not rich people. All lower caste people are not poor people. We are talking about it. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So, you speak about both equality and equity as well. The equality to equity is all about ethics. It is more than law, not compromising, which is practical and flexible. Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Baudelaire Rawls we are talking about. I think it is right time. Let me take you to, the case studies. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, that this is linking. Ettu choraka kariki odavano. What you learn should be applied. Apply your brain, I'm talking about. So, previous year questions, of course, few case studies we are going to discuss here, because, in every case study, that first, what is the template? Of course, that you should know, that what is the domain it belongs to. First, what is the domain? Whether it is ethics, basic human values, or ethics in personal relation, or ethics in social relation, ethics in public administration, or environmental ethics, or ethics in international relation. First, locate the domain. Then understand who are all the stakeholders, the parties involved in that particular case study. The second, this is a template for all case studies I'm talking about. You understand what I'm talking about? So, it is that way. Whatever may be the case study, that there will be some, facts associated with that. Maybe that links with, that maybe government's policies, program, that schemes, that ultimately, otherwise some constitutional, that the provisions, or maybe Supreme Court judgments, or maybe about budget or economic survey, or maybe, that international indices, or maybe outcome of United Nations Security Council resolution, or the theme of, that international organizations. Why not? Of course, that the facts relevant, but it is not, but it is not speaking in the way of GS, but applying the GS. So, in that, the flavor is needed. It's not getting into and start, the moment you get the question based on Right to Information Act, it's not writing, 100% features of RTA. Just touch that in what way it is relevant to the case study. So, that facts, relevant facts we are talking about. Wherever possible, that ultimately you should not hesitate to incorporate the thinkers I'm talking about. The thinkers, the philosophers, that Western thinkers, or, who are maybe the thinkers, that different parts of the world I'm talking about, the thinkers, philosophers. The contributions, from different quarters, to enrich the subject matter of ethics. And also, that necessary codes. When you're providing ethical solution, how the solution should be, that I'm talking about, the codes, you link with that. What is that? Ultimately, to substantiate your answer, you reinforce. In the name of course, there may be few words, that effectively, that communicating what you want to communicate. You don't trouble yourself, that you need not break your head what I'm talking about. So by taking asylum in thinkers or linking with thinkers or quotes, finally every case study will expect you to go for introspection. That introspection is very, very important, that asking you to, that analyze the merits and demerits, based on a particular situation you are given. And that goes with the nature of the domain. And maybe expecting you to, at the bottom of that particular case study, in the name of question, they ask you. That's ultimately the target, that the task you're meant for answering. So accordingly, that you have to answer, you have to provide solution. I'm talking about this is general principle. Let me recall, that locate the domain of that particular case study, understand the different stakeholders involved, parties involved, and also the, that you take into account, that relevant facts for that. It's not going deep. There comes your role of GS. And also, that take asylum in the word of, the philosopher, thinkers, or quotes to effectively communicate, link with them. And also, that otherwise, to speak a set of values meant for that particular domain in your ethical solution, that should have that particular flavor I'm talking about. Then, and also, that you go for introspection, I'm saying. The very introspection, that ultimately you analyze the merits or demerits involved in the case. Then you go by the case study question. At the bottom of the case study, that you will be given direction, the task, what you have to do. Then you have to answer it. This is the best approach. This is what the right approach, that as far as, that we are concerned with this much experience, you can benefit. If you have got any difference of opinion also, you can add me. We are ready to change for your sake, that when you feel something which is more communicative, this is fantastic, I believe. All my kids, got fantastic marks by implementing that. I hear fantastic feedback. You can also try to implement that way. So this could be a template for all the case studies I'm talking about. Understand? Yes. So let me get into the case study. You are a public information officer in a government department. One second. You are aware that Right to Information Act, the Parivartan movement, ultimately people came, that the democratization of information, because, the corruption, red tapeism, the people unaware, the schemes, that out of which they can benefit. Otherwise, the mentality on the part of bureaucrats, you might be aware, the suppression of fact is crime. They sometimes never engage people, never answer people, thinking that they are supreme. Hello, you are means to the end. End, who is the end? Public delivery. Who is the end? People are delivering. Who is the king? Customer is the king. They are not disturbing your process. Rather, by asking, some clarification, by demanding a particular question, they give you opportunity so that you serve the better. You serve, the customers, better. That's what Mahatma Gandhi stand. They are not troubling you. They are not interrupting you in your job when they come to your office. I've got, 11 o'clock. That guy should be killed. It's unethical what I'm talking. You should be thrown out. If you're not ready to, of course, otherwise, is there any specific time? The visitor's time? It's not the problem. It is how do we respond to the problem we are talking about. So it is that way, that. So if you're not interested in serving people, why you came to public service? Otherwise, do yoga. You say pressure, that thing, this. Do yogas now, have physical exercise, take right food, have good sleep, take break otherwise. After that, you join the service. Right? It is not, that sitting on a flight saying that, that when the flight is not taking off, why do you sit on aeroplane? Come out. I'm talking about, that way. So this attitude on the part of, officials I'm talking about. As if, that they are owners of, the government. You are not owner, you are trustee. The people are owners ultimately. You don't understand this logic, you can't survive there for long. But it takes maturity for you to understand this. Whether they are political masters or, bureaucrats part of administration I'm talking about. You are mere means, not an end. That way, what happened, right? So all these attitudes, bureaucratic attitudes, to take asylum in laws and talking about limitation, inflexibility, not revealing information, or treating, the public very badly, given, the poverty, illiteracy on the part of Indian population. And there comes another question. The people themselves, that they are malafide. And they become, ultimately, they are used by other people with, malafide intentions, maybe opposition political parties. or that any antisocial elements want to extort money from public servant. They use these people in the name of RT Act. You go and apply, you get the information so that we can that target that guy. That's also apparently happening. How extent we are prepared, we are talking about. So you are public information officer in the government department. You are aware that that is why RTI came. The right information, democratization of information. So transparency in administration. That's the thing we are talking about. It envisages that the transparency and accountability in administration we are talking about. It's almost like to ensure good governance. And officers should be responsible also. We are talking about, it's making government officials responsible. You are accountable for all of your actions. Come on, what you did, show me. As a citizen of this India, you got every right to. And of course, it's gone are the days of official secrets act. It's not demanding, that in what way you did on surgical strike. It's not, that the government may not come forward to compromise, that the strategic interest. A country's, that security affairs cannot be compromised. It's not free from, you might be aware, we are talking about. So the act has functioned as a check on the supposedly arbitrarily administrative. This is what we spoke now. The arbitration, we are arbitrarily administrative behavior and actions, unbecoming on the part of any bureaucratic. Yeah, unethicality we are talking about. However, as public information officer, you have observed that there are citizens who filed RTA applications and not for themselves. As I said now, part 2. They are, that there are malafide people with malafide intentions on behalf of these RTA applications. And that such stakeholders who purportedly want to have access to information to further their own interests, we are talking about. They want, that further their own interests, that otherwise self-experience. We are talking about this is right. So at the same time, there are, that these RT activists, who routinely file these RT applications and attempt to extort money. This is part 2. It's happening. We are talking about, that the people are utilized as, that shield. They take asylum there. Yeah, good and bad people are everywhere. It's not, that it's not exclusive domain of a particular section we're talking about. So, that to extort money from the decision makers. And this type of RT activism has affected the functioning of administration adversely and also possibly jeopardizes, harms the genuineness of the applications we are talking about. You may be genuine, that a person applying for right to information. Ultimately, you're also, that suspected. You are also seen with suspicion. It is that way. So, which are essentially, that ultimately you may be interested in getting justice alone, but that you are dealt on par with those guys. Ultimately, that goes against, that a genuine the citizens we are talking about. So, what measures would you suggest to support, the genuine and non-genuine applications? How to segregate and give merits? See, give merits and demerits of your organization. Public information officer, no doubt, the domain is ethics in public administration. 2017 questions we are talking about. Let me take you in. So, the domain is ethics in public administration. The stakeholders, that on the one hand, the fake people, citizens, the fake people applying for RTI, there were antisocial elements. Otherwise, that the people with malafide intentions behind, and the genuine people applying for, that under RTA, that for to get, that right information to increase their awareness so as to benefit more from the government. That's number 2. As you as public information officer, you understand the stakeholders. This is ethics in public administration. Whenever you say ethics in public administration, the value system LCR, ITF, Unix. This is the value system. And also, that Unexa, anonymity, you add. And this is one way of telling, that bringing. I've got my code. You please keep in your mind. You can have also evolve your own code, which talks about, it's not without compromising law. Then, that your commitment to service talks about responsibility. It talks about your integrity. Then it talks about transparency. Then this talks about fusion. Then this talks about excellence in what you do. And this talks about utilitarianism. This talks about national interest. This talks about equity, because unique problem on the part of the genuine persons applying. Because of the malafide people, these genuine people should not get affected. So equity, and also you should show sensitivity. So you segregate, you identify right people, and also keep yourself anonymous. I did. That's a core principle of, that ethics in public administration. It's not, pasting poster everywhere. Eh? You see, when you go to temple and all, uh, maybe that particular tube light would have been sponsored by one guy. There would have been big board. This particular tube light has been sponsored by so and so. The very tube light, that the light will be consumed over that particular board. If you feed someone and you take camera with you, you are not feeding poor. You are feeding your ego. Anonymity we are talking about. So over the year, Right to Information Act has emerged as a milestone in assuring transparency in administration and governance we are talking about. Of course, no doubt it's benefiting. Of course, it's not free from the problems what we are discussing now. So the case study mentions that, how to ensure that the genuine people applying for under RTA, that so that they don't get affected as a PIO, what you will do, and merits and demerits. So it has provided a tool. It's a brief introduction. This is one way of, that information I've taken from net. I'm sharing with you. You can give fantastic information based on our discussion. I add more tools with you. This is not the final way. Got the idea, na? I'm taking just opportunity to discuss more. You move to the next level. So it has provided a tool in the hands of citizens to bring the best out of the government. But in many cases, that has also served as a way to harass the government official. That it is ultimately, that ultimately give this with malified intention, that they get discouraged sometimes. And also, that threatening them to extract money. You did something, I will do that thing. Blackmailing, you might be aware. So to deal with such situations, that the measures, that what are all the measures, it is our answer. We are suggesting it is that way. Those filing RTA application, that applications may be asked to mention about any connection or interest they have the concerned department. So ultimately, that so that you can understand, because among that two guys meant for a promotion for a particular post, maybe there will be one genuine guy, there may be one unethical guy on the part of administration. This unethical guy will do everything so that genuine guy may be scuttled out of the competition, so that this guy may occupy. For that, he's insider information. He knows much than the outside public, and he would have done something maybe for administrative reason. Boss would have corrected him, and that the whole administration would have taken responsibility, the collective responsibility, and they would have moved to the next level with you of protecting that employee, because the organization took into account a lot of best things he would have or contributed in the past. But whereas this guy in competition, he has got different agenda. He will pinpoint that, leak that information, and through RTA tackle that, and ultimately projecting in the public. Otherwise, that someone, that demand, it is that way it may happen. Maybe this guy, maybe a genuine guy afraid of losing promotion, ready to pay money or extorted. It is that may happen. So you have to understand, that. So when you are applying for RTA application, that anybody connected there, because so that you recognize any malified intention. So connect, the interest they have, because that no man can be the judge of his own cause. There is Supreme Court judgment. This is conflict of interest. If any of your relatives part of that particular, the government office organization, you got malified intention. This is violates the principle called conflict of interest. If that if you are a beneficiary, that your relatives there may be instrumental. They share that benefit ultimately. It's a loss to the exchequer of the government. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. It's talking about that. I think it is that way. So applicants might be given options to specify whether information as that the serves public purpose or private purpose. What is the motive behind? In law, the motive is very important. More than a crime, what is the motive behind the law? Motive should be punished, penalized, more than the crime, criminal. That's very important. So that you ultimately that ask him to mention the public, you will reveal ultimately the private interest or public interest. That will be revealed. So it is that way you can demand, nothing wrong in that we are talking about. So the merit, on the one hand, if you do this, it might help to identify the persons who indulge in all or misusing or that going for extortion of that right officials, otherwise doing wrong things, unethical things, illegal things. You can that get, but at the same time, what is the demerit? Because the question asks you to go for introspection, analyze both. So it makes process a little cumbersome. What happened? Even genuine applicants also will be harassed. Because a guy who speaks truth, you may not be good at communication. A guy who speaks, that who is an unethical guy, sometimes he is very good at, that communication and misleading the whole community. That's what politicians doing out there. Huh? How many people we see? Fantastic communication, eloquence, rhetoric, impressive, thought-provoking. What are all the things you say may be good? Are you good? Are you good? We're talking about, நீ சொல்வதெல்லாம் சரியாக இருக்கலாம். நீ சொல்வது எல்லா உண்மைகளும் சரியாக கூட இருக்கலாம். நீ உண்மையானவனா? But there is another justification from Tirukkural. Of course, மெய்ப்பொருள் காண்பது அறிவு. Whoever may be, whatever may be the section, is it truth? Accept. That end justifies means. That's different story. So come on, demerits. Ultimately, even, it gives, it's harassing ultimately. Even genuine applicants also, they may get discouraged. They know how to put it sometimes. It is that way. So all the previous applications and the RTA could be scrutinized. You go for, that verification. And I know that, and trends in asking questions. You see a similar trend you find, the fixing official, or the genuineness, to learn the information, or genuineness, that out of which the society benefits. So that definitely you can, through the pattern of questions, definitely you can arrive at. So that, the genuine applications can be segregated from the non-genuine one. At the, it's not killing the messenger. It's not killing the message, the killing the messenger. Are you aware the difference? It's not killing the messenger ultimately. To kill the message, not the messenger. You got another term also. Sometimes that. It is that way. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, so habitual offenders can be closely monitored. That definitely there will be some, in the name of whistleblowers, there are guys, that want extra officials. I've seen a lot of guys. That is so, but that as far I also played some whistleblowers role in some situations. I was appropriately responded by the government. Actions were taken. I know, because I think they would have understood. They would have verified background and all. But there are guys in the roadside, in the name of lawyers, in the name of liars, that they will go with politicians or opposition leaders to cause discomfort to the ruling government. That are all the things happening. You might be aware. So otherwise, to make themselves very prominent, they do all those things. Not for the societal benefit, for their own personal benefit. So all those habitual offenders, definitely for that you can, link with, police department and get the report, that you can be, cautious over them. So the merit is that it will help in creating a robust database of almost all applicants, for the future reference of the department, and identify the miscreants, that the culprits you will understand. Overall, that with malified intentions, you got the list. And you can immediately, that you can waste, you need not waste time, you can save time, that ultimately, and otherwise you will be cautious in verifying. It is that way you become extra cautious in that way. So demerits, of course, it will create extra burden on the employees of the department, as they might have to, help, get the help of, as I said, that law and order agencies, the police department you have to interact with, you have to get the details, and if possible media, whether that guy is really genuine guy or not. Of course, you need, when the purpose is great, you have to fuse, gel, the fusion, that you have to go with, you need a team ultimately, so that you save time. We are talking about, so few changes regarding charges and fees associated with providing information can be made in law, because, so ultimately people, that of course, to discourage, that non-serious, applicants also, government has fixed, that there also, that you can take into account. So there should be no changes in the fee, that for initial filing of the application. First, let them come inside. After that, before delivering the information, maybe for some stationary purposes, you can demand. So, it is not stopping them in the beginning itself. An idea should flow. Maybe in the evolution, before the, in the end stage, before they get the data, at least for, towards stationary expenses, something. So ultimately, that can be done. It should not be stopped in the beginning. So otherwise, that that's a problem. That the people with genuine information, genuine cause, the genuine demand, running short of resources, poor people, ultimately, they may not come. The purpose may not be solved. The very needy people may be scuttled because of that process. So, but if they are found to be false and serving vested interests, got the idea? If you understand they are malified people, wrong people, that of someone in the later investigation, a suitable monetary fine, that that ultimately the penalization should be done, so, as a matter of deterrence, so that others should hesitate, that should be heavy penalty should be charged. So others should not even think about, doing the repeating the same. That is that demands ultimately we are talking about. So you regulate people behavior in such a way, afraid of that. So merits, it will act as, the check and on insecure and unscrupulous applicants, and and hit others, that economically of wrongdoing. What happened? That polluter must pay. Got the idea? Na? So the penalization for those guys. Demerit, it will create, divide and discrimination between rich and people. What will happen once you identify, if you yield to, the corruption, nepotism, favoritism, or pressure from, that your higher ups. Yeah, there was election in, that some, that of course, when Kannappan in Tamil Nadu, and he won. Ultimately, what happened? That the party leader asking, "Hey, come on, you go and that right." Ultimately, that as if you accepted the defeat. So another guy won because the pressure came from higher ups. The state election commissioner is saying what to do. You should have resigned and gone out of the service. Most of the problems in the world, not because of the violence of worse people, but silence of good people, I'm saying. Even Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister of India, was accused, he became Manmohan Singh. Why? You might be aware, because of the thing, that he did not take proper action against all those, errant ministers. That ultimately pulling down the entire, the team. The UPA came down, got defeated in the elections. You might be aware. Most of the problems in the world, not because of the violence of the worst people, but silence of the good people. Even that, you come across in media, the controversies. He may be a very good person, fantastic person, the proven, that economist, no doubt. Who is questioning that? As a politician, as a chief among equals, the primus inter pares, you became remote control to that party. That's the accusation we are talking about. So it will divide, and so the officials part of there should not yield, that to the the pressures and ultimately protecting, rich and poor people who have become, that errant boys. We are talking about that way. So economically well-off and non-genuine applications, we are talking about, that will, that economically well-off, affluent people, and non-genuine applications, non-serious applications will not, that hesitate to file applications, applicants will not hesitate to file applications, while poor will be discouraged. That goes with affluence. There will be predominant, middle class or upper class people with malified intentions, the white collar crimes. You have to be aware. We are talking about more than the poor people. Otherwise, poor people will be used as a shield, and anti-social elements or malified people behind them. So we should be cautious. We are talking about, so above steps, will help in segregating genuine applications, that from non-genuine ones, and will help take, the effective actions accordingly. However, in the given question, there are RTA activists who are attempting to extort money. The ransom we are talking about from the decision makers. We are talking about, it indicates systemic flaws. We are talking about someone is inside. It's not possible otherwise. The government, that systematic flaws in the government department itself. We are talking about, that it is that way. That so who is that black sheep we have to identify. Besides, it points to the fact that decision makers want to hide the information, as it might expose the wrongdoings in the governance. What happens, right? So that suppression of fact is a crime. If it is revealed by that RT application, who asked you to that suppress that information? For that you can't escape penalization or disciplinary proceeding committees, whatever may be. So it is that way. Whether it is that the whistleblower from inside or outside, that different matters. That so geez, that's what we are talking about. That Caesar's wife should be beyond suspicion. Why Caesar's wife? Even Caesar himself, should be beyond suspicion. Let's speak, the gender justice. It is that way. It is in German. So it points to the fact that, ultimately, that, that goes with insider somewhere. The decision makers want to hide suppression of fact is crime we are talking about. So because, afraid of consequences. So it comes out later. So governance itself should be reformed. Ultimately, that's what, see, recommendation, okay, fantastic. When the government is doing, we are criticizing government. When the government is talking about, reform, perform, transform, or perform or perish. When they reform, when they throw away all those archaic, outdated, obsolete laws, ultimately what happened? The protest in the street. The government has got different responsibilities. They have to open up the economy, reform the economy, so that that generate resources, so that with that infrastructural facility, maybe the institutional lending for the very poor people, small and marginal farmers, otherwise Kisan scheme, subsidy, populistic measures, everything can be done. The government is trying that reform way, but they are accused as if they are going directly against, the issue is getting politicized by destructive politicians, by deceiving, that opposition political parties or corrupt media, people with malified intention. So that's the ethical dilemma on the part of, the governments, people part of the governments. You have to understand. It's not easy. You have to understand, they weigh all options and handle accordingly. Otherwise, the very government has got justification even for this, the agriculture laws. Hitherto, all reforms, that mulled or discussed on the part of opposition parties, they implemented. They say, we don't want credit, you take away. But in spite of that, we are talking about. So, that ultimately it's gone to the extent of, criticizing, here our, the mind first, man ki baat. Later you can, that speak and, we will listen. That's ultimately talking about malified intention. Some elements behind we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, that questions ultimately. So the genuine applicants, that must be provided with requisite information. They should not be scuttled. Truth alone triumphs finally, that whatever maybe, if you scuttle, it has got its own consequences, that. So all, that existing, that limitations on the part of the law, the administrative structure should be reformed, the transparency and accountability should be never compromised, we are talking about. It is that way. So better option, that if you're talking about, better option would be, we are talking about, that to play proactive role, and put most of the information that are, that not exempted under the act in public domain easily accessible. Use government portals, use notice boards, use all media, print media, electronic media, flyers. Why not? Even, that you create a social group, the website itself, that there should be, downloading of information provision. Why do you suppress? Maybe, the people will access, right? It is that way, once you do that. So government should come forward, to disseminate the information the maximum possible way possible, right? Using all, the mediums I'm talking about. And even, celluloid world, theaters ultimately. But given COVID situation, I think social media is better. That there should be, that one particular, that the group, as that Arogya Setu, during COVID times, how information spread, how you have to meet the obligation. When you go to airport, ultimately, do you have app? The question. The same way. But anybody approaching, that do you have a RTA app? We have put everything. Come on, you watch that. You get, but it should be, local lingua franca. It's not putting only in Hindi or only in English. What about people speaking their own vernacular languages? So tri-languages formula should be adapted so that the people become aware. Otherwise, all civil society organizations should be the priority. They should be shared, and it becomes, their responsibility. All government officers, ultimately, there should be a special nodal officer. People first come, first, before they apply, what's your problem? Come on, you just have you downloaded, you read. If you don't know, you ask. Otherwise, you go for. It can be done. It may be, that pressurizing government, by creating offices like this. Why not? When the very economy involved, the time waste, the energy waste out of this, fake applications, when you think about it, the government should weigh this option, creating nodal officer to address only that needs, and that too before applying. Before applying, you should, get the clearance from that guy. But that guy should be genuine guy. There comes, another thing, altogether we are talking about. So, that the proactiveness on the part of the government to spread the information. So later you need not worry. I think, ladies and gentlemen, it is the right time. Let me take you to the next case study. Of course, even this, that the court, the template domain, of course, the stakeholders involved, the very facts relevant, and also, that the thinkers, courts wherever possible, and also the ethical solution you provide, after introspection, merits, demerits, that goes with the question of the case. Yes, you got it. I think it is right time. Let me take you, to the next case study, ladies and gentlemen. So building permitted, that for 3 floors. But that has been, that it's only 10% deviation. But today you talk about the balance between needy versus greedy, very greedy people. You might be aware, that even the very flight, that to increase more number of seats, the flight you might be very, that it's horrible experience. You have to sit like this. I think Vistara is fantastic. The seat's comfortable. Even Indigo, but I'm speaking open. Come on, you're ready to face. It's inconvenience on the part of, the consumer, me. I'm talking about. Yes! But you want, increase more seat, earn more money, because given aviation already in loss, we understand. But how many hours? 3 hours when you go to Delhi, you sit like this. At least half an hour from Chennai to Coimbatore, cool. But think about, so I'm talking about, that greediness, that there should be regulation, norms. Basic, the Vistara I was quite comfortable, that we are talking about. So while being extended illegally, to 6 floors by a builder, that ultimately what happened, yeah, too much of everything is bad, collapses. Even in Tamil Nadu, that in Chennai, that few years back, Mohalivakam, that came. And you might be aware, in Chennai, most of the lakes, have become cities. Pulidivakam, Velacheri, Pallikaranai, Churanai, Yendal, the Ikatu Tangal, all, Pakam, Vakam, Nungambakam, all names of, water bodies. Now the whole city is on them. Encroachment, even government encroachment we are talking about. So ultimately water lost its way, where to go? It is not water came to your place. It's not animal coming to your place, causing people-animal conflict we are talking about. Man-animal conflict. You built your homes, in forests, by clearing forests, by clearing, lakes. It's the encroachment. That's why, water entering your space. They were not knowing, unable to reach, that the ocean and sea. They don't know how to. Ultimately, you are on the way, spoiled. You say inundation, loss of lives, destruction of property, disaster December. The same way here, it's greedy people. So ultimately, what happened? It collapses. That the commercialization. As a consequence, the number of innocent laborers, you might be aware. I think one. That most of the migrant laborers from Bihar, you might be aware. They're talking about it. If you go and you see in all construction works, and during COVID situation, how the migrants, that some of the migrants died before reaching home. You might be aware. Long distance they have to walk, that all those things. We're talking about those migrant laborers. What happens, during the building construction, they stay in the very building itself. Anything happens in the building, they die with that. The whole family is there. They should be given separate place, which they should be protected. What is the, it's not only minimum wage as per, that labor reforms we are talking about, minimum accommodation. And what happened, why they are preferred, that when comparing with native laborers, the laborers brought from other states, that there are intermediaries. They exploit them. There are a lot of movies also, that how, that, I don't know, I forgot the names, when Vijay movie came, would have, how the, migrant laborers, dying, it's taken for granted, how the intermediates, there will be a lot of Kanganis, supervisor, in the name of HR, that they also, ultimately, that indulge in corruption with the management, and the benefit is not reaching the poor people, the victims ultimately. So they will take away everything. You might be aware. So because, they take advantage of, poverty, illiteracy. They don't have background. They are the voiceless people. And this guy intermediate projecting as if he is the voice of those voiceless people, and he will, the bargain more for his own benefit, not passing them to, the very poor laborers. You might be aware. So as a consequence, a number of innocent laborers, including women and children, that ultimately, they died because of the collapse. Why? Deviation, the building collapses, ultimately, that laborers, women and children in that, innocent people die. These laborers, that are migrant from different places, maybe Bihar, that's clear-cut example. The government immediately announced cash relief to the aggrieved families. There comes another question, whether it has reached the families, how much it reached, given the percentage commission of the governments, how much you gave, how much you announced, how much you gave, how much it reached them, how much the intermediate took away. It's apart from government corruption, I'm asking. And, that, and ultimately arrested built, the very builder arrested, how many, he will be given jamin after a few days, because that guy will be binami of any minister. And he will have a mechanism in the name of Supreme Court lawyers to protect him. Oh my God. So ultimately what happened, that people's memory is very short. That's what India's disease. People forget later. Sensationalism in the news. It will be for 2 days, 1 week, that's all. Later you forget. But that guy will be fantastic. He'll be doing the same in another project. And there will be connivance, perfect connivance between government officials, and this guy will be having political backing, because these guys are lobby for the politicians during elections. You might be aware, they supply, all resources. And also men, all these laborers will be going and sitting in that, political, you might be aware, are you aware? It's a managed show. So there'll be, that recruitment agents, that they will supply you. If you want 10,000 people, they will arrange. The same people will go to another political party meeting. Sometimes, they don't have time to change the sari and, the dhoti meant for, the different political identity. It's happening. So these labors will be utilized for that also sometimes. How come, that a guy from, Bihar can sit for Tamil Nadu elections, electoral rally here? I'm talking not even knowing, the language spoken by the leaders there. So you understand, lobby works that way. So variety of things you come to know. So give reasons, they'll be paid some 200 rupees, some biryanis. And, because, they will compare, you stop everything here. You stop all, construction activities for 6 months. You send all the people for, political meetings, wherever we go. Come on, arrange bus. We will arrange biryani, food for them. Over. Because at the end of the day, these people wanted money. That's also they are exploited. So give reasons, but even the money is not properly paid for them, saying that, only on work, otherwise you'll be getting 50%. So give reasons for such incidents taking place across the country. What? Greed. Greedy. Planet of the earth has got all the resources so as to meet one's need, as said by Mahatma Gandhi, but not the greed. Too much of everything is bad. The greatest, virtuous life is to live with little. It's better to live with little by honesty than more with dishonesty. That's Plato. We're talking about, that suggest measures to prevent, that the Western moral ethics we are talking about. Suggest measures to prevent their occurrence we are talking about. Of course, that what is this? We are talking about, that this of course overlaps. Ethics in social relation, ethics, that in public relation. The government immediately announced, which talks about ethics in public administration. We are talking about there ultimately you sue all those officials responsible, ethics in public administration. But here you are not, that given, that official position as district magistrate or something else like that. You are simply, this is ethics in social relation, parallelly government involved, ethics in public relation, two kinds of value system you're going to incorporate. Ethics in social relation, you might be aware. SI, OA, OH, L. What is that? This is Nolan Committee recommendation. Selflessness, integrity, openness, accountability, objectivity, honesty, leadership. This is Nolan Committee recommendations, ethics in social relation, but ethics in public administration, already well. So we are talking about, that what is this? Give reasons for such incidents taking place in the country. There comes, ultimately starting from, that CMD authorities, whoever maybe, that DTP planning level, from local body to urban bodies, the government officials, the concerned ministries ultimately, and concerned local bodies in supervising ultimately. And the builders, that first of all, they're greedy and their payoffs to, before getting, the approval for those projects ultimately. And also, it's people's lack of awareness, that before buying that property. The questioning, you should question in this area only 3 floors. Now, how come you can build 6 floors? Because they are also very greedy, because all ill-gotten money invested somewhere, because they are not going to stay. They will be allowing it for some rental purpose. Who is going to die? They are not bothered. It is just investments. So all these things, and also, the politicians are unaware, because, it happened to be all builders or lobby we are talking about. So everything works together. We are talking about, and deviation, and all engineers should be immediately arrested. It's not only builder, the engineers, that took part in that particular construction, their license should be cancelled. They should be afraid of working, that any projects like that. I'm talking how these stringent measures can be implemented only by ethical people above them on the part of administration. Honest person, people with integrity, then only, that is the vicious circle of poverty I'm talking about. Vicious circle of poverty, that compromise is at everywhere we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, so give reasons for such incidents taking place across the country, suggest measures to prevent their occurrence we are talking about. There are numerous incidences, building collapses, like this. But during construction itself, the collapses. And because now no proper soil testing. And what's happening, the town planning, I'm asking, the DTP, everything, all round floating of norms. Think about builders, the greedy. It's not 10%. Only when this guy is, the belonging to opposition party, action will be taken. If that guy belongs to ruling party, opposition will, the government will not take action. Only, that it happens, that the very incident, like, that ultimately the collapse, they'll be talking about. The very, the 1 month, they'll be, all around checking up all those buildings in that locality. It's eyewash. After 1 month, you will forget because you got another issue to focus. The people's memory, very short. People play with that. The officials play with that. Public, that the politicians playing with that ultimately as ministers. So there are numerous incidences of building collapse, that reported across the country. Or on regular basis, that are killing innocent laborers. We are talking about a variety of incidents, the Madigeri, that ultimately Karnataka, the Chennai Mogalivakam, I said, in Mumbai several times. The unfit buildings, should be asked to evacuate sometimes. That's not happening. And given, that the politicians are afraid of losing their vote bank politics, and anything happens, that people have to face. And people also, should understand. Security, suvar irundal dan sithiram. Security is number one. As long as you are alive, you can do something. If you're not alive, but you are quite busy. It is that way. So, and the people, that living in them. So, poor and shoddy construction along with non-compliance of regulation. That it's ultimately, they know how to, because all are jugards. They know how to, what to give, where to give, when to finish the task, by whom. Eh? Oh my God, all survival instincts, guys, na? Only for, subsistence economy, not for excellence. Eh? One day the ill-gotten money, it will have its own ill-gotten lifestyle in them. Ultimately, we are talking about. So, has done immense damage to the life of the people we are talking about. You might be aware. So, the reasons could be attributed to such incidents on regular basis or discuss, that the points we are discussing now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you. The ease with which rules and regulations are bypassed, you overlook, neglected by the builders remain the main concern. The greedy, the corrupt mechanism in place, systemic flaws. Even the National Building Code, what we are talking about, provides guidelines, of course, but floating of everything for regulating building construction activities, but they are not strictly adhered to by the builders. There is no monitoring mechanism, even monitoring mechanism without, that going there by phone. But these guys are very keen on visiting on that festival days and, that New Year days to get the payoffs back. Otherwise, they'll be given, they will be sent. And there'll be, the gala parties for every project's approval. Because the connection, the share, how many movies you watch. So apathy towards, that I think watch, that Indian one, and even, that one Nayak, Mudalvan came, the corruption in India. So, that so many things, even Ramana, Tagore, Gabbar Singh, you would have watched the movie, that will reveal all the stories. The Gabbar Singh, very clear-cut example. In Tamil, it's Ramana. Tagore, I think, in Telugu. You please watch that movie. That's centered around this. The story completely centered around this. How the mechanism, the builders, that's clear-cut case study. Apathy towards, that laws make illegal construction a trend that continues to, the take life of innocent citizens we are talking about. Ultimately, who is the receiving end? Poor people, the laborers here, and otherwise, the people's hard-earned money invested there. Sometimes they are unaware, but it's wrong. That you should be, that it's not blaming the society ultimately. Whenever you go for investment, you should check, that length and breadth. Otherwise, that, and you have to face the, the heat we are talking about. So, moreover, as a consumer, that you should have your own awareness. So, moreover, the standards prescribed for the construction, but the question emphasizes only, that the government measures, as well as, we are talking about, of course, the migrant laborers no more, and of course, the very builder got, arrested. And what's your suggestion? Moreover, standards prescribed for the construction are at best poorly defined, that people either do not understand or not aware of it. See, they'll say, that a stone throw away distance, but, it will be 5 kilometers distance. And, they'll be saying, that by this year, that, I mean, in 1 year we'll be giving, but it will never, definitely never happen. So, you will purchase the property, you will never occupy the property, you will be continuously paying, EMIs and everything. That's a problem. That's the problem against middle class to have own house. That's why, the US model, rentier class, you have to try. The complete money is getting locked, all your hard-earned money completely going to the bank in the name of EMIs. But, that given, after demonetization, 40% of the prices came down. It's not worthy of buying. So, come out of this mentality. Have one home, that's all. But in the name of going for investment, don't get locked with, the banks ultimately. Let me advise you. Now I've taken financial advisor rule. Oh my God, because that ultimately you can never come out of it. Otherwise, you work hard, you earn money for the sake of banks. You worked hard, you know that ultimately with discipline, that your family, made you as a wonderful person. Especially, ultimately you are given up. That you are sent to banks because you earn money for the banks because whatever you earn, that's for EMI. Banks EMI ultimately. That's the way people caught up. Come on, get the awareness. But ultimately, the banks are very keen in enforcing, the rules and regulations towards Aam Aadmi, poor people, not against those Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modis, not against those corrupt politicians. All banks became bankruptcy. Why? The NPA, non-performing asset or stress asset, what you are talking about, only against, the ethical people, not against, because, that's beyond their reach. They can't do anything. Because, these bank officials also want to survive monthly salary. Oh my God, I'm talking about that. So it is that way. It's connivance. It's a mechanism. It's a system working in such a way. We are talking about. So moreover, all revenues, everything happens. So this is apart from price going down in the name of demonetization or whatever may be our market situation. The investments getting locked. We are talking about. So ultimately, what happened, right? Before purchasing one thing, after purchasing, you got several loss. That the loss on the part of the nation, the nation's exchequer, because of the bad people on the part of banking sector we are talking about. Even the construction itself, builders ultimately, that the before the project's realization, the case study is centered around the very realization, Ramana movie, of course, or Tagore or Gabbar Singh. So the standards prescribed for the construction are at best poorly defined by the people. That it's getting repeated. We are talking about, that you just forget. So poor designs of buildings that could not withstand, the extra floors are also needed, the blamed. We are talking about no proper soil testing, safety measures, regulations, local bodies, what they are doing, district town planning, or, that ultimately, the local bodies, whatever maybe, even CMDA, urban local body. So the poor quality materials used in the construction we are talking about, all profit motive ultimately. And sometimes most of the the apartments built, it looks like that it less than the government building standards. I don't bring these government building standards because that it's less than that. It looks like that. Why? The profit motive. So expansion, that ultimately, that any expansion ultimately, that over this, list the quality materials, what will happen? That's all. So at the root of the such, there is no proper foundation also, no proper soil testing. Erstwhile it could have been a lake. Nothing done in that way. That at the root of such incidents is unplanned urbanization, hasty urbanization that forces, that one to opt for accommodation that is built illegally on the face of limited choices that people get in ever expanding urban areas. We are talking about the hasty settlements, the hasty legislation, maybe eyeing on election, by slum clearance board, something they build. Ultimately, what corruption happening in slum clearance board, we might be aware. We are talking about it. That ultimately citing laws, that only corrupt guys, the topping. We're talking about it that way. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you to the lecture. But they will speak as if, that they're very, that ethical people, honest people. But we know who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So somewhere, government, that also failed in providing affordable accommodation. We're talking about it. So there was also editorial in Hindu how that why in every that urban centers there can't be that the housing boards like quarters to accommodate this migrant laborers so that they will stay safe. They won't stay that they won't go to that construction site and die along with construction. And given COVID situation, it could have accommodated them in properly. That there was an article. Why through slum clearance board, that they can't be accommodated, ultimately every month, that they can't collect, though informal workforce we are talking about. Why the measures cannot be given fact, 95% of workforce in India, of course, informal workforce. Why can't you do? Why are you always talking about, government, very meager percentage government staffs we are talking about, the low income, middle income, high income groups, whatever may be. What about, informal workforce? It is ultimately they run the country. They take part in the production spheres, but they aren't getting anything with poor life conditions. Ultimately, intermediaries exploiting like agriculture, intermediaries are like builders exploiting, and also the corruption to the core. So somewhere government has failed to that providing affordable accommodation to citizens, and that can be done. That can be fixed. I'm talking about by having the support of housing board, slum clearance board. We're talking about why can't you initiate? Why can't you? But it involves money. At the end of the day, people benefit. Na? You want only their votes. They have to vote and they have to die doing nothing. So, that if you're really keen in taking care of those, migrant laborers also, please take care of them by going for, that. So, they will be free from this, that all these incidents I'm talking about. They are poor, innocent people for subsistence. That let's be good Samaritan I'm talking about. Veteran. Let's work decisively. How long we are going to talk about informal workforce? Informal workforce. You bring, you accommodate. So it is that way, that we can reduce, casualties. So hence they go for, ultimately it is because of that reason we are talking about. So, that even it's not only for informal workforce, even the people, that urge to buy, the flats from private buyers will go down. If the government itself comes forward in building more and, not only for restricted to, the government employees, even for informal workforce, why don't you implement? Of course, thanks to that, the House for All scheme, the efforts, apart from Indra Awas Yojana, the present ruling dispensation also, has given a home for homeless people we are talking about. It should be done in a war footing mode. Why not? So above all, the builders, that moral attributes. It is that way. Array, you can fool some people sometime, all people sometime, some people all the time, not all the people all the time. Every act is a holy act. Every act is a holy act. Devotion to the duty is the highest form of worship. Even deontological approach. John Rawlsianism, take into account, the very, that Immanuel Kant, you take into account. It is that way. Seyyum Thozhile De. Highest form of devotion to the duty, that we are talking about. Devotion to the duty is the highest form of worship. Karma theory. We are talking about. So the builder's moral attributes, you can't escape. Karma theory. So are to be blamed in totality, that finds all right. It's not only, that the very builders, we are talking about the government officials, that the local body officials and the people's lack of awareness, I'm talking about lack of verifiability. And those guys should be brought to the book and punished, that thrown away everything it is, so that others will be afraid of doing the same. It's a matter of deterrence we are talking about. So to compromise people's life in turn, that for monetary, everything, that the greedy, there should be a perfect blend, the balance between need and greed. So otherwise, when there is injustice, that in the relationship, justice, what happened, right? Justice may not be, the relationship may not be long lasting. The builder has to lose, that the public, the confidence. He can't. Take care of yourself. It is that way, it's better to live with little by honest means than the more by dishonest means we are talking about. So measures to prevent such occurrences we are talking about. First and foremost, the rules and regulations need to be defined in a clear terms, that enforced effectively, that should be, that should be spread, to the public. And standards defined in the National Building Code need to be effectively adhered to. And those who, that violate should be brought to the book, stringent punishments and everything. So, that awareness, that to the citizens, that by using all mediums of communication regarding construction activities. It is that way, so that they avoid purchasing any illegally constructed property. The violations they should know. That demands, that's what RTA, the role of RTA is crucial there. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. And if any official involved in suppression of fact should be immediately dealt with, we are talking about. So, the crush facilities, that when we are talking about, see, that is what, there is a song, Unjai Undu, Nanjai Undu, Pongi Varum Gangai Undu, Panjam Mattum Innum Ingu, Maravilla. இங்க பாரதத்து சொத்து பஞ்சம் தீரவில்லை. Global Hunger Index putting India with 112th rank. Are you aware? Putting less than Bangladesh. On the one side, the farmers are committing suicide. That ultimately the poverty, hunger we are talking about. Other side, food grains are getting wasted in the godowns. We need storage facilities, everything. What these corporates are doing? Come on. Government should take war footing measures. Every corporate should own more responsibility towards establishing Food Corporation of India storage facilities. Can you do it? I'm asking. வானத்தை எட்டி நிற்கும் உயர்ந்த மாளிகை யாரிங்கு கட்டி வைத்தது. A guy who builds, that house for us, ultimately he is living on streets. It is that way. A guy, the workforce, this is in favor of the workforce, maybe all trade unions there, but I know, The leaders of trade union, I question them. Ultimately, that's different scenario. So the crush facilities, there should be minimal requirement, that on the part of the construction workers, the safe accommodation, the crush facilities or to all those, the people we are talking about. That's what the housing boards, can accommodate, the build houses to accommodate migrant workers, as said by the Hindu editorials. Come on, that's a message to all, the planners, legislatures I'm talking about. So proper welfare mechanism should be put in place for children and women laborer working at construction sites. Already, the given government places, okay. What about private places? The construction sites, that's free from. They should not, first of all, they should not be allowed to stay in the construction, place itself. That's quite dangerous. So apart from, cutting at supply level, we are talking about, so planned urbanization will go long way, not hasty urbanization. Speed thrills but kills. Slow and steady wins the race. Of course, speed and steady, the conscious speed. The world of, the kung fu. We talk about speed and accuracy works, but speed, it's not, you should not misunderstand with hastiness. Have clarity. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, in addressing this concern, satellite towns, that need to be built to ease pressure. Of course, that this is again, that building, the housing board colonies, with the support of, that all those department housing, that HUDCO, slum clearance board, everything, their role. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is right time. Let me take you to another case studies. Of course, a case study we are talking about, right? So you are aspiring to become IAS officer, and you have cleared various stages. Now you have seen as, you have been selected for personal interview. Also, you're going, but on the day of interview, what happens, right? That way to the venue, you saw an accident. There comes ethical dilemma where a mother and child, that who happen to your relatives we are talking about, were badly injured in an accident. It's ethical dilemma whether to protect them, ensure the safety, reach, the hospital, to take care of the lives of those people, or that to become IAS officer and to serve the nation, or to serve the nation. When you say, is it rhetoric or eloquence? When you got, the people in front of you, that to relatives, you got immediate responsibility. The ethical dilemma, what you will do? They needed immediate help, you might be aware. So ethical, putting yourself, this is ethics in social relations. Of course, that SIOA OHL, and also, the basic personal ethics involved, that, what is that? TRLPJ, I spoke in the beginning. TRLPJ, what is that? Truth, responsibility. It's not G, J. What is that? That love, peace, justice. What is fair in that particular situation? That, that you want, once you become officer, that selfless service. But is it not selfless service? Only when you are given title you will do. There are leaders without titles we are speaking. And don't you show integrity here? Are you not open-minded? Maybe closed-minded? Only after getting service, only allotted district, only you will serve. And that too, you will be for, your own home state. To serve your own people. You are not ready to come out of your comfort. And also, are you not accountable to the situation? Objectivity, the situation demands. Are you not honest person? A guy who can't be a leader in his own, home sphere, the community, how come she can be a leader in the community, the society? Is it not wonderful opportunity? How the ethical dilemma is there, I understand. It's then, if you miss the bus, what will happen? You have to wait for another one. Yeah, I understand. So what are the measures can be done so that, without compromising, the attending of your interview, and also you did something so that, this victims of accident, your relatives, the mother and child, that reach safely, towards hospital, and calling ambulance or relatives, someone parallelly, and given, the Supreme Court judgment, whenever you meet, that some people in the roadside, whether they are relatives or anybody, in the accident, you need not hesitate to, help them. You can immediately, take them, call ambulance. You can help them, to reach the hospital. A loss of blood may be needed. If possible, you can also contribute your blood. But the point is, you should not be harassed by hospital officials or police officials. This is on the basis of the judgment given by Supreme Court. You can keep yourself anonymous. You can help. Let me parallelly, that all my kids watching, if you get that opportunity, please help. I did that way, that what guy got saved because of that. Early morning, 3 o'clock, that when I went for, that organizational advertisement activities, came back, two wheelers, that were hit by some vehicles, the drunkard guys, moreover. It's full of blood. I called immediately ambulance ultimately. And that guy, after the treatment, 6 months, came and met me in my cabin saying, thank you so much, sir, for saving my life. And he wanted my advice. I gave and said that I somewhat, that guy recognized me. That because I immediately called. It's not I'm sorry. The God gave me opportunity so that that I could call that ambulance, and they safe reach I'm talking about. So but the similar situation you get as per Supreme Court judgment, you can keep yourself anonymous. They should not harass you. Come on, you can also help. So what would you have done in that situation as a civil service aspirant heading towards the venue of your UPSC civil service interview? That's going to be a paradigm shift. At the same time here, இங்க என்ன சொல்லுது? The heart versus brain. Of course, this is ethical dilemma. You understand? So what is the point we are talking about? That the ethical dilemma or conflict of interest, what you witnessed, we are talking about stakeholders, of course, mother, child, that you going towards and society. What's your obligation towards society? The ethical dilemmas, that the personal cost of ethical dilemma. You should not miss interview. And also your responsibility, the future civil service aspirant, your obligation towards society, ethics in social relation. And values at play we are talking about. Of course, as I said, that what is that? The values we discussed already. What are all those? Basic human values, ethics in basic human values, and ethics in social relation, Nolan Committee recommendations. We spoke all these values already. More than that, you try to practice everywhere. So course of action, I'll take the following steps. What are all those following steps, according to you? Yes, we are talking about, so I'm sorry, so that, you stay with the spirit of the case study. That's why I gave this, that don't get misled. So that, the women and children, the accident like this, we have become, that cinema people like, from a teacher to entertainer. Oh my God. But I feel pity about this. Something real happened, incident happened, the photographs, that let's our prayers with those, the people, otherwise, that got affected for speedy recovery. But I use that photograph so that you stay with the question, the case study, that of course it is unethical. It is unethical, but the outcome is that I'm making you as wonderful leader. It justifies means. Come on. Okay, first, I'll try help, that taking help of the bystanders. The neighbor, come on, யாராவது அங்க இருக்கீங்களா? முझे बचाओ, बचाओ. So ultimately, they're there and persuade them. To, it's very natural, that the people will definitely help you. It's very natural. Will come and, that do something. It's not, still in spite of that, in spite of several unethicality on the world, right? There are good people nearby. Definitely, they'll put themselves that position. They'll try to help you. Don't worry. And nearest hospital, of course, you, if possible, you call him ambulance. That, since they are your relatives, you call that any one of your relatives to reach that particular place, to immediate help to accident victims, and persuade them to do some humanitarian, maybe first aid. So first of all, you see them what first aid can be done, and with the help of people that you try to, and ultimately call ambulance, parallelly calling relatives and some hospitals, whatever maybe, and civic authorities, police officials, everybody, and legal grounds, good Samaritan law we are talking about, and assure them, that no harassment at the hands of medical and legal authorities. As I told you, Supreme Court already gave this good Samaritan law, that they can keep themselves anonymity. You please come forward. I'm heading towards interview, otherwise I can. But that they will also understand the situation, due to which they might hesitate, that because afraid of, that harassment by officials. So good Samaritan law. So, and that you have to make them aware ultimately, that, but of course time is very short, faster. So I would call, that ambulance, that for medical help, and police for further investigation, apprise them the situation earliest. Then I am relieved of the safety, that, if you do, you will lose. Now, ship is always safe on its shore, but ship is meant for sailing. Right, ready to face challenges, open-minded, show courage in that particular situation. It's not seeing and becoming, that emotionally broken. Ultimately, you lose your interview as well as not taking care of these people. So that demands, that your emotional intelligence parallelly. So safety of the victim, and can peacefully, that also parallelly, that you should not get influenced. Of course, that this is what situation, this is what life. This is a situation, that strengthens all these, that instead of comfort, all those, the difficult situations, that strengthening your personality. You might be aware. We are talking about. I would also try calling up my relatives or friends to rush to the hospital and take over the responsibility. That these are all the things, that, all measures, the fusion, that no stones left unturned to be part of the solution we're talking about. And concerned authorities, that at UPSC, that, if at all, maybe few seconds delay, that to report immediately, maybe, that if you are, that saying it is because of that, definitely the people part of recruitment will appreciate that, will definitely honor you. But if at all any delay, I'm talking about, but of course, that even if it is, that is going to be, if they are not like hearing, you came late, you are rejected, that thing, I don't think, when you that goes with your communication skill, effective communication, so that you reach that information, reaches, that we are talking about. So above actions on the one hand will ensure timely medical attention, for the accident victims we are talking about, and will also help them take care of the, help you. Parallel, you also take care of your interview without compromising, that your social obligation, either as a citizen or the relative to your own community, as an aspirant of, the civil service examination. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the balance we are talking about, that the value system we spoke, right? So land need, I think, this is the last case study. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take, a few more minutes, so that, you take the land needed for mining. You can also, that comfort yourself, that go for some refreshment, please. Yes. So, that you might be, it is encroachment. Let me put it simply. Even in the ethical dilemmas in the beginning, when I gave introduction about ethics, that it is not in the name of economic development, government may be thinking about a lot of mining projects. But who gave you authority to displace the local population, the native forest people, indigenous people? For the sake of your economic development, that a comfort, how come you can go against it? Otherwise, it's not taking forest people and locating somewhere the name of, rehabilitation, resettlement measures. Have they been given proper compensation, rehabilitation? It is almost taking fish out of the water, saying that, that I'll give you tomorrow morning in the Park Sheraton, I'll give you good breakfast. In the afternoon, I'll take you to, Lee Meridian for, wonderful, lunch. What is this? Who gave you authority? By the time the fish is no more, I'm talking about. Who are you to decide the habitat for them? After all, we are foreigners, encroaches to that native indigenous people called tribal people. According to Forest Right Act, that the tribal people should be treated as, that part and parcel of the forest. They should have access to minor forest produce. Are you aware of it? It is that way. But that even the Panchayat Extension Services Act, Forest Dwellers Act, we are talking about, even, the Gram Sabha, vested with responsibility, and there should be approval from, the local body. It is not government, and also environment impact, that assessment. National Green Tribunal, part of, Union Environment, the Ministry, and Climatic Change we are talking about. Union Environment and Forest Ministry and Climatic Change we are talking about. Even the new proposals, ultimately, that all think tanks in India that came up with, that signature from reputed institutions going against the proposals of environment impact assessment. And government on its part also has got some strategic projects. They are not ready to reveal the information. And the very people likely to be affected, the tribal people, unaware that they are going to be encroached. Otherwise, the information is spread in such a way, it's not in their own local vernacular. And even think about the forest, and the very, only that you got tiger and elephant. Don't they have other animals? Who will speak on behalf of them? Huh? Tiger project, elephant project. Okay, what about the rest of the animals? They're not animals. There comes discrimination with other animals also. There comes, role of environmental ethics too. So this case study is centered around such. So land needed for mining, even dams, Sardar Sarovar Dam, there came, the criticism, you might be aware. And the government says hefty compensation, but the inundation of houses, 40,000 houses, the native people, some protected forests, flora, fauna, species. So land needed for mining as well as dams and other large projects, that is acquired from Adivasis, forest people, the hill dwellers. According to Mahatma Gandhi, they are called Girijans. They are the first people, native indigenous people. They are not illiterate people, pre-literate people yet to get exposed to the education. But India's tribal history, you might be aware, the mainland people are relatively rich people when the northeastern, the tribal people are relatively rich people when comparing with, the mainland tribal people. The mainland tribal people are, this is according to Ramachandra Guha, you might be aware. The very tribal people, they are very poor people, but they are sitting on the rich mineral resources, Chota Nagpur Plateau, and next to perennial rivers. but they are very poor people. Of course, there are several policies: isolation policy, integration policy, accommodation policy, fifth schedule, sixth schedule of Indian Constitution. You are talking about even National Commission on Scheduled Tribes. We are talking about and tribal parks and Nehru's Panchsheel policy. And there are people like G.S. Gurye, Verrier Elvin. You might be aware. We are talking about and several that intellectuals working in this community for their upliftment. Are you aware? And I read one story. One person was arrested, and because of the thing, probably he may be urban Naxal or anti-social element like that. But later, the police station got the information that guy was a greatest professor from one of the foreign universities, especially USA, and came with that humble dress and working for upliftment of tribal people there. So these are all the things that ultimately working there. So speaking for the cause, dedicating the life for the cause of some people, the needy people, downtrodden people. So that you might be aware, that to become voice of the voiceless, and also the rural communities getting contaminated, affected, or encroached because of the government's encroachment. We are, as I said, the 8-lane road projects between Salem and Chennai to favor corporate Jindal. The displaced persons are paid monetary compensation. We are talking about as per legal provisions. But what to do with money? You're thrown out of your habitat, right? And that ultimately the payment is also very tardy. It is not hefty. The meager thing. It's also not free from corruption. As I said, given the commission governments that in place, only that if it is that, say for example, if it is that 10 lakhs, they would have got only that 4 lakhs on hand. 60% they would have eaten the government corruption, the politicians corruption, and otherwise other intermediaries exploiting them. They don't know how to survive. All these things, in any case, it can't sustain the displaced families for long, the very money what they get. And also, that these people do not possess marketable skills. That hunting and food gathering people, they don't know how to. They live on subsistence. If at all they get produce, they don't know economic value of them. So that's what I'm talking about. That there comes government initiatives. Ultimately, there should be the councils, tribal councils especially, located, to market all those, the traditional products. I see very fortunate thing nowadays, even in the airports, that the tribal peoples, the products are at display. So the people, fond of it immediately buy there. They cherish. These are all the things happening. You might be, so they may not have that particular skills. There comes the role of government, civil society organization, responsible individuals, tribal councils, the National Commission on Tribes. We have to engage in some other, we are talking about. It cannot sustain, displaced families for long. These people do not possess marketable skills to engage in some other, not accusation, occupation. This word is wrong. Occupation. Got the idea? Not accusation. No relevance. So to end up, that as low-paid migrant laborers, got the point? They're not free from the exploitation from mainland people also. And moreover, the development goes to industries, industrialists, urban communities. Whereas, because even the resorts are allowed to be built there. Whereas costs are passed to the poor, helpless people we are talking about. This unjust, the distribution of costs and benefits is unethical. We come across several projects in different parts of India, and that goes against native people, the indigenous people, forest people. Suppose you have been interested with the task of drafting a better compensation, come rehabilitation policy for such displaced person. There is already Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act, you might be aware. So how would you approach the problem? And that would be in the main elements of, that would be the main element of your, that suggested policy. You're talking about, that is that way, what's your solution or suggestion to these people, when you are interested with compensation, come, the question stays here. You understand the gravity of the situation. The people should be, properly compensated, rehabilitated. So why they should be, come to mainstream? In the forest itself, other side of the forest, they can be accommodated. Otherwise, in some other forest, taking them. Let them survive there in the forest itself. Yes, it is that way. So instead of that bringing the main in the name of development, you construct buildings, that they don't know, they can't survive. We are talking about the very money what you give also, that it won't come for long. That accommodation we are talking about. That's why the people ultimately migrate they themselves from one forest to another. See, the lifestyle. So the rights of Adivasis, rural communities, hill dwellers, that their rights over the forest resources, we spoke already, under Forest Rights Act must be kept in mind because they are part of the forest. All minor produce for which they are accessible. And the various, the compensation like payment, and they should be absorbed in, that if possible, they're educated. Of course, all round isolation, assimilation, integration, all measures should be done. It should be, that should go with the willingness on the part of the people. It's not forcing them. And if at all they are interested, let them aware of all these things. So it is that way upcoming industries, that the very project, ultimately, that it can house their own people. If you employ their native people, ultimately probably it becomes very easier. They should be housed, they should be accommodated. So through Forest Right Act, though Forest Right Act was passed in 2006. We're talking about, according to the citizens, that report prepared by Community Forest Rights, only 3% of villages or communities could actually secure their rights. We are talking about, there are people still kept out of the purview. We're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, that so it's not reaching the very masses, the maximum we are talking about that way. The approach to be adopted, we are talking rehabilitation must be fixed according to the community or category of the people being displaced, which should ensure them the basic amenities, that are subject to restrictions of the forest protection. We are talking about whatever the rehabilitation, that you provide, it's not taking them to the modern amenities. Ultimately, they can't survive. They will be exploited there, and taking them to another forest arena so that they are comfortable. It is that way, that it's without violating, the already evolved, the forest laws we have already. So even after the compensation, they should not be deprived of their, the rights, like, that access to the minor forest produce we are talking about, like bamboo and everything, which includes even grazing, pastoralists, everything. You might be aware, it's very fortunate. Some of the tribal peoples, the government collaborating with them, and they have become, that ultimately tourist destination. Some in Coimbatore also, that with the support of forest department, Paralikadu, you hear. The forest people, they make food and ultimately they serve and they are compensated. Some way it helps. Hope they are not exploited by forest people, I believe. So these measures should be appreciated. It will be in traditional food we are talking about it. Several projects like that, in collaboration in different parts of India, we appreciate that measures also parallelly. So, for example, Telangana government, that was in total violation of the Forest Rights Act. That's why, see, the very, wherever these people are violated, even the Sukma districts of, Chhattisgarh we are talking about, the local population, that ultimately they were taken as a shield by, that either Naxalites, ultimately they were taken to the task. They are in between. The government forces, CRPF and Naxalites, they are getting killed, innocent civilians. Where there is exploitation, there comes ultimately, the very Naxalism, red terrorism. We are talking about parallelly. So, that because, internal security related issues, that why the people, because of underdevelopment, sometimes the very development measures like this, the governmental encouragement pushing them to poverty. So internal security related issues may be not only because of poverty or underdevelopment, sometimes because of development also. Like this, building dams, mining projects, the government public projects, pushing them to the extreme exploitation. We're talking about this. So Telangana government also, that they faced that. What is that? Total violation of Forest Right Act is the illegalized traditional methods of forest land cultivation, and creating a lot of interest ultimately. So that's why, that we are talking about. So the free informed consent of Gram Sabhas, the effective role of Gram Sabha. Without the approval of Gram Sabha, no government project can enter there. Panchayat Extension Services Act, you might be aware, Article 243. We speak about that. And also environment impact assessment, even there comes, the very irony is that earlier National Green Tribunal were given authority. Now they were asked to report to, that the Ministry of, the Environment and Forest and Climate Change. You just see their position got subordinated. So we are talking about all these maladies, paralysis. Okay, so for any, because government is very keen about economic reforms, speedy clearance of projects, and ease of doing business index, attracting, more foreign investment, global competitiveness index, and S&P and Moody rating, Moody's, that not Modi, Moody's, that rating agencies we are talking about. and that puts that Indian economy in the eyes of investors, global investors low. They've got different challenges. On the other hand, that is what this is really ethical dilemmas we are talking about. Whether government should think in terms of economic development, or the parallelly taking care of the sections of the population got victimized. There comes ultimately ethics guiding you. So what is the point we are talking about? That so that government, as I told you already, locate the domain under the stakeholder, that is the yardstick, under the stakeholder, and also recognize the ethical dilemmas or conflict of interest involved we are talking about. And finally, that you also try to incorporate thinkers, or the codes wherever possible. And finally, you go for that introspection, analyze the merits and demerits involved ultimately, and provide solution. The solution in such a way that addresses the question, and without compromising the value systems part of the domain. It is that way we speak. So gram sabhas for any government plans to remove the tribal or hill dwellers from the forest, and for the settlement or rehabilitation package should not be undermined. If you ignore that, it's gone then. They can approach the court. We are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is the right time. So the main elements that must include creating awareness among the lot of the community rights provision we are talking about, and ensuring that implementation of laws of community, the forest provision is undiluted. We are talking about the strict that adherence to the law of the land we are talking about, and awareness, and that and nodal tribal departments that must provide clear instructions to the concerned administrators, and also informing the tribal people in their own local lingua franca. But it cannot be done, however, without strong political will. Without strong political will, it should be a top-down approach. Ivory tower approach will never work. Top-down approach. There should be a strong direction from the top. Then only it is possible. And these instructions, almost, that what happened, right? Strong political will almost go unheard. We are talking about, if there is no strong political will. Got the idea? We are talking about that. So it's not only that effective role on the part of that the people implementation, strong political will we are talking about. So the main elements must also include, we are discussing everything, imparting skills to the displaced migrants, and should be made compulsory along with compensation. This is talking about assimilation measures. Later they will get integrated with the main society. And there comes another question: who are you to train them for you? Do you think you are living cultured way of life, giving all social issues, nepotism, favoritism, cronyism, corruption in kind I am talking about, and widening inequality, gender injustice, transgender injustice, exploitation? Do you think your culture is great and you want to train them for your culture? There comes that we have to question ourselves, thinking we are greatest civilized culture, and once they come to know, they will hate us. It's better to isolate themselves. Let them be. Let them be as they are. Why do you contaminate them in the name of development or civilization? So we are talking that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, so should be made compulsory along with compensation. This would give them the right to decide whether they want to migrate as laborers, that are working, that upcoming industry. That's what I said. If at all any measures what you take, there should be willingness on their own part. If they, there should be concomitant, that the concurrence we are talking about, it is that way. So for us, that a rights act should be a major hurdle for corporate to cross with intentions of single-handed profit making. It's protecting them, because tribals are part and parcel of the Forest Rights Act 2006. You might be aware. This is apart from other measures. So some of the most tribal states have poor record of implementation of the compensatory provisions, and Forest Rights Act must be made more transparent. We are talking about still the opaqueness on the part of the government. We are complaining, ladies and gentlemen, that way. The concerned authority must be made accountable for complaints, that accountable for non-complaints. If there are any, that violation, they should be brought to the book. It is that way, that because, that already they are poor people, exploiting from poor people. They should be strictly dealt with. That you might be, the law should be stringent, so that gives deterrence to other guys, that trying to aspire same. So a grievance redressal mechanism, that being part of the solution must be created, where tribals, the displaced can openly register for complaints, and it should be done. There should be people, that employed in such a way to understand from their own local lingua franca. It is that way. There should be a nodal officer like. So they should be appraised, that regularly to dispense, that those complaints. It should be a time-bounded clearance. It's not simply complaining. When the grievances are not addressed, what the use? So the nodal officer should not become mere complaint box. He should be part of the solution. And, the coordinating with different parts of, the sectors of the government in such a way for speedy disposal of cases. There itself, given, already the judiciary, justice delayed, justice denied, we are talking about. So that's what you can fool some people sometimes, some people all the time. All the people sometime, not all the people all the time. Abraham Lincoln statement. Otherwise, when there is injustice in the relationship will not be long lasting. The government may be thinking today they are exploiting, that ultimately in the name of heavier projects, ultimately, that you go against nature. It won't survive. That's what we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. You can never win over nature. Nature is supreme. Ultimately, after all, that it's not after all, our native indigenous people, Adivasis, forest people are part and parcel of that particular nature. Let's respect the nature. Let's, the grow. Let's work towards, the environmental sustainability. Because our future, the growth should not be at the cost of the future generation. The growth should not be at the cost of a section of population. There should be inclusive governance, inclusive growth we are talking about. So such displacements straight away violate the right to life of the dwellers, forest dwellers and other areas. You are not only violating the law, you're going against, that ultimately, that a downtrodden community, poorest of the poor, you're doing injustice, and proper rehabilitation of the displaced population must be ensured. The government mechanisms in what way they can come forward, we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, that, and I took you to the right path by discussing, that the thinkers, especially the Kantianism and Rawlsianism, and, that in enriching, the domain of, that the very ethics. It's not only, that we discuss, the concepts like, of course, transcendental idealism, empiricism, categorical imperatives of, that German philosopher Immanuel Kant, the categorical imperatives where he says all human beings should be treated as ends. I think even the recent case study, what we discussed, the government encroachment on local people, where we have to talk about, they are humans. Why, the second-hand treatment to them? Even for animals, why some animals treated discriminated? All human beings, should be treated as, the ends, not as means, categorical imperatives. That is the thing. We are talking about, and even Rawlsianism spoke about, we are all human beings, and there are people unique with unique problems. They should be, that recognized. We have to understand that, and we have to provide solution to that, and we have to take care of them. There we talk about protective discrimination, positive discrimination. Otherwise, that where we talk about the principle of equity. There comes, that John Baudelaire, Rawls, that Rawlsianism, through his book Theory of Justice, he spoke about, the hypothetical subjects, with task to establish just society, where, the contract, the two principles over which they came on agreement. What is that? Equality principle. Another one is equity principle. Moving from equality to equity is ethics. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not only that, we discuss, that the thinkers and their contribution to the ethics. We discuss 4 case studies cutting across different spheres. Ladies and gentlemen, you can also improve yourself more by going for basic books like Lexicon and other books, that Subbaraw's, that ethics, integrity, aptitude, and also, that ethics in public administration, and, that Ramesh Arora, and also, the second administrative reform commission report, the 4th report, even, that gives you more ideas about ethics in public administration. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not only that, the contribution from great thinkers, the codes, and different religions, and their, the spirit. Yes, that they play crucial role. You might be aware, ladies and gentlemen. I think, that I took, that much time of yours, ladies and gentlemen, and that too, that. But I'm very happy. I'm confident that I would have made your time worthwhile. I believe. I definitely know that I've got confidence in that. And welcoming you once again to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath. Ladies and gentlemen, hitherto interacted with you. That too on ethics and integrity, which has got the responsibility of 250 marks, 120 marks for thinkers, of course, theories, 130 marks for case studies, ladies and gentlemen. And in the beginning, we discussed ethical dilemmas. What is the subject? That's guiding you. The very ethics subject, is more than law, not compromising law. Which is not, that stopped by the limitations or rigidity of, that the bureaucratic mechanism, which provides solution pragmatically, and also, that has got flexibility. You might be aware. So ethics is not more than law, but not compromising law. But you might be aware. Whenever there is limitations, rigidity, we practice ethics. It's guiding you. Whenever you got confusion, ethical dilemma, conflict of interest, ladies and gentlemen, I think, hope it would have benefited more than scoring marks in UPSC civil service examination, becoming topper and becoming an officer or leader in your capacity. This subject, ladies and gentlemen, will transform you. Let me give you guarantee for that. It will transform you. You open up. That will happen. So, that please participate, benefit more. And I appreciate your, the passions in this direction and also consistent, that the participation, ladies and gentlemen. And please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. And that too, as I said at the beginning, please go for iconic program or plus program because its purpose is great. Great things will take time. You are meant for higher order purpose, ladies and gentlemen. So, that when you enter into government service, try to settle with, the top position so that, you get wonderful opportunities with power. You can do more. You can make difference in the lives of so many people. So I think, the civil service, the becoming civil servant of India is wonderful opportunity. But let me tell you, you can also ask me how many people are there, what happened. No, there are fantastic people there, and don't get, deceived by the negativity happening in and around you. And you can be the, the change that you'd like to see in the world. How long you are going to accuse? It's better to, light a candle than cursing the darkness. I repeat once again, it is better to light a candle than cursing the darkness. Instead of entering into negativity, all those accusations, please be part of the system, that ultimately you can make difference. The winners don't do different things, they do things different. Let me repeat, winners don't do different things, they do things differently. Ladies and gentlemen, so, that appreciating once again to the, the world of, civil service, the preparation, of course, that go for iconic program because, 2 years, 1 year for your preparation, 1 year for your pattern of examination. I think, as I told you, the price hike on the part of iconic program is on the cards. Also participate in gamification, Unacademy combat, ladies and gentlemen, appreciating you once again, and, for your passion and persistence, and, that a student in you, the learning syndrome. Appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. This is Success Sampath signing off from you. Thank you so much. Have the rest of the day. Fantastic day. Thank you. Let's meet once again in the evening also for another session by 5 o'clock. Thank you. Peace.